Damn it, I forgot to be recording the entire. I forgot to record again. Alright, so today we are going to be reacting and analyzing a Kirsche video I have not yet watched. Um, so it is itself an hour and 14 minutes, so I'm probably not going to talk as much as I do in the other videos just because I don't want to turn this into a 3-hour video. But Kirsch's commentary is usually fairly solid, and I'm just going to be supplementing what she has to say if I see that there's any gaps in the commentary. So let's see. Kirsche is usually pretty spot on with a lot of this stuff, so I'm curious as to how well this is going to turn out.
Oh yeah, this guy's a freak.
So today we'll be reacting to this video uploaded by a completely normal individual titled "The Right-Wing VTuber Grifter Situation is Insane." A very moist, critical, coded title right there, to be honest. But you can see the like to dislike ratio. It's not going too well for this individual. 198 likes versus 656 dislikes.
First of all, that's crazy. Second of all, this description, let me get this straight. You think it's funny when these conservative content creators lose financial opportunities because people hate them? I do, and I'm tired of pretending it's not, and I'm assuming there's more after that, but jeez. The thumbnail's TOS. You can't make a call to action for harassment like that on YouTube. Yeah, I don't know if it's gotten reported or taken down, but regardless, I wouldn't give this fucking freak any views. So I'm gonna watch Rev watch it.
I did actually watch the original video. It wasn't all that substantial, to be perfectly honest. He does not define any of his terms, so, and you don't expect him to define any of his terms, to be perfectly honest. That would take a little bit too much integrity from the left to actually define their terms, because then it opens them up to criticism for the use of manipulative language. But this is classic. Honestly, this is classic leftism in this video. There's a lot of sophistry. There is a lot of rhetoric. So there's the manipulation of bad philosophy, the manipulation of bad language, and there is just a smug confidence that is attempted to like carry this. So that's confidence epistemology. Uh, it is admittedly by this guy's own opinion, own words. This guy in another video admitted to making propaganda. And anyone who admits to making propaganda should be immediately suspicious, because propaganda, the function of a propaganda is the same as a grimoire in the Middle Ages. It's not a grimoire in the Middle Ages did not have the function of teaching you how to cast spells. The function of a grimoire is to cast the spell on the reader. This is why, and I know it's an unpopular thing, but this is something I have figured out over time researching esoteric texts. This is actually the reason why there was a list of forbidden books by the Catholic Church. It wasn't necessarily because they had anything per se to hide, but rather because they understood that these books were dangerous because these books were spell casts themselves. The entire point of the book is to entrance and then to enrapture in a spell. So that's actually the reason those books were banned. And a lot of these books, yeah, I have read them before. When I was really young, yeah, I can recall the effect that they had on me because I didn't know any better. Now that I actually do know better and I understand how these books function, it becomes really obvious what these things are, and it becomes really obvious what a lot of political, especially ideological texts are, because they have the same function. Whether that be, for example, Das Kapital, whether that be Mein Kampf, whether that be the writings of Giovanni Gentile, whether that be any number of other ideological screeds, they're all grimoires. They just don't pretend to be magic. But they still use the same techniques that magic texts do to enrapture and ensnare into a hyper reality the reader. So if you understand how these texts work and you have a good grounding in philosophy, so especially metaphysics, then yeah, these texts can be read and understood without falling victim to the spell. But if you don't understand these particular tools, it can be more convincing than it actually is, because if you're not trained in metaphysics or philosophy, bad ideas can be framed to sound in a convincing way. if you manipulate language, if you manipulate philosophy, and if you manipulate sheer confidence, that is how cult leaders tend to work. And we see how well that works. It works really well actually on people. So if you're going to read any of this stuff, please get yourself caught up on philosophy and study how rhetoric is used to manipulate the contents of your mind, because that is exactly how these things function. So anyone who says that they produce propaganda, be immediately fucking suspicious of them, because what they're admitting to is creating modern grimoires. They are admitting to casting spells designed to ensnare the viewer. So
Sacrificed himself for
the
our
thumbnail
good.
is very interesting. It says, "We need to bully these people more."
Oh, it's just like that one fucking creator who's now doing that. I think I covered the Black VTuber Award show a little bit last year, because I think that was their first year setting it up. But I didn't know last year that one of the people who set it up was the person who called me a racial slur and then lost their Advanced GG sponsorship over it. Madam Savvy pointed that out this year, and I was like, God damn, that's crazy. They called for more harassment against me, and then also called me a very funny racial slur. And I was like, damn, that's crazy.
I kind of want to know what the slur is, to be perfectly honest. Like, okay, fair enough. What was the word? I kind of want to know what the word is. But that being said, I mean, you reap and you sow, right? Like, this is the entire thing this guy says, this Jacksum person says in his video, is basically you reap what you sow. And you sow evil, therefore you reap evil in return. So, but again, he has no room to stand on when the opposite happens in the other direction, like the incident Kirsch is talking about. If you reap what you sow, it cuts both ways.
This entire video is celebrating harassment and deplatforming and removing of sponsors from people like myself.
But if you defend yourself, you're the bad person. If you defend yourself, how dare you use cancel culture? I thought you were against cancel culture. What a duplicitous, hypocritical bitch.
While trying to claim that
Yeah. So the whole if you defend yourself, you're the bad guy is always an issue of framing. This actually was a thing that happened, for example, to American soldiers in Afghanistan, for example, where they would be put in a situation where they would have to shoot someone because either they were wearing a fake bomb or like they were, basically the person was coerced into bringing a weapon and trying to fight against the American forces, so that they would get shot and killed, right? And what would end up happening is people would swarm the body before anything had happened. They would remove the gun from the situation, and then they would take pictures of the corpse and then frame it as if the Americans shot someone who was innocent. And they would sometimes use children or even pregnant women to do this because it was an optics game. But that being said, granted, I don't think we should have been in the Middle East at all. I don't really give a shit about what happens in the sand part of the world, to be perfectly honest. But that being said, this is just an optics game. All of these people who don't believe in an objective truth, they play optics games like this because if there is no essence, then there's only appearances. So appearances become your weapon. So, and again, they try to manipulate that Western humility, that Western value of humility, and they frame you defending yourself not just as you being the aggressor, but they also try to frame it as you being unwilling to learn. So you're being prideful, you're being vain, or you're being too upset about it. So you're being disproportionate in your anger. So that they're accusing you of wrath. Uh, it's all a framing game.
the empathetic ones doesn't really work. But anyways, the thumbnail is interesting
Leaflet
too
reacted
because
to a different video of his. That one was actually insane. You need to watch it afterwards. Do you have the link? Do
you can see down here you have
that was the video I actually kind of want. It's the video I set up to watch after this. So I guess I might have to like combine that with the Kirsha react to that if she reacts to that.
Leaflet and Kirsha, and this will be important for a couple of reasons.
Someone said that they actually put fucking Asari's picture on the thumbnail at first. Like this guy is just so fucking born in a vat of acid. He didn't even know the difference between Leaflet and Asari, which is
oh shit.
Fucking fucking funny.
and just
I'm gonna have to pause this because I actually don't remember that being a thing. Because I hold on, did he actually do that? I hate to actually have to listen to the look up this fucker again. Hold on. Uh, okay, no, I'm not doing that part. I just need to get to the part where you actually talk about people. Uh, Although to be fair, I don't think his opinion of Asari is going to be all that different from the opinion he has of Leaflet. To be perfectly honest, let's see. Uh, I don't know if he actually did this, so I'm just quickly going through it. Uh, About halfway through the video, and I don't see this mistake. But considering this individual also did cut information out of his video that would make his case look worse, I wouldn't exactly put it past the guy. Okay. Because research doesn't seem to be their forte. And I mean, to be fair, if you admit to making propaganda, you literally are admitting to being a liar. So, yeah, I don't see that mistake in here. It could very well be, but I guess I'll let this play in the background while this goes on.
a second, but these are two VTubers I really do enjoy. But they also included Powder.
He's a murderous psychopath. Has now called for violence as well as financial ruin. In his other YouTube video, he's ranting exactly like Hitler. He made another video post, this one, to claim his use of grifter and fascist was accurate. It's just like when you're like a weak, disgusting individual and you hate yourself, it makes you feel powerful to go after other people, especially if you can get a consensus to go after them with you, right? Like, I'm a safe target to attack. Rev is a safe target to attack. Because we have to deal with this bullshit all the time. So these people can quite easily, even without knowing anything about us, just repeat any kind of lies and get like a million Reddit updates for it. It's actually fascinating.
Who's been going through her own.
Again, this is also predicated on the idea that these people believe that these words actually mean something in reality and aren't just tools used to, or cement their own power. There's obviously the free written quote of word, the demon's words are just tools, means to deceive people. Yeah. Uh, in all fairness, these people don't believe that there is any real. These people don't really believe that integrity in a conversation is all that important. That's why they use this manipulative framing by redefining words to arbitrarily fit their particular need. Like, again, as I pointed out, there are a number of words that exist in the English language that fit all the individual cases that the word fascism has been expanded to mean. The same thing with the word Nazi has been expanded to mean. These words actually have their own very specific technical details. And yes, fascism, Nazism, both evil, but they're distinct ideologies with their own set of doctrines that can actually be understood in their historical context and understood by their contradictions. The reason that this is conflated and obfuscated is because there's historical baggage here. First of all, the Marxist has to justify why their murder of civilians wasn't justified, but was justified, but the Nazis wasn't. And so the way that they do this was, since they won that particular conflict, they helped defeat the Nazis. They can stage the Nazis as their diametric opposition, even though Nazism is a sister religion sharing a genealogy with Marxism. So they are distinct, but they are also related, like, worldviews. Same thing with fascism. And while fascism, ironically enough, killed less people than Nazism or Marxism ever did, that became a useful umbrella term to brand people. In fact, the Soviet Union would do this. In the Soviet Union, this would be one of the things that would be accused. People would, for example, accuse the Ukrainians of being Nazis or Nazi sympathizers, even though there's not a lot of good evidence outside of Soviet sources, which are already subject to disrepute because, again, propagandists. As justification, one of the justifications for things like the Holodomor, and what they did to, for example, Poland, which was not all that pleasant. That being said, so yeah, this is again the what would you call it? Diffusion of the term fascism into just meaninglessness and as a signifier of this bad guy. This is the bad guy. This is the enemy. Is intentional. The same thing with the diffusion of the term Nazi into just this is the enemy. They don't really care if you are these things. Again, it is just a term, a signifier by which they justify destroying you and killing you for opposing their own eschatological ends. No, wrong button.
Own cancellation campaign recently, which I think is totally overblown and ridiculous as well. But it's weird to include her with me in the background as the sort of puppeteer of everything going on when my only interaction with Powder is a video from about 2 years ago.
Rev's the puppeteer. He was our Mossad agent the whole time. Where's my $7,000, fucking Rev? Where's my payment?
Where I criticized her. So it's weird to kind of lump us together, but here is the video, and let's set some ground rules, okay? The person making this considers everyone we just talked about, Powder, Kirsha, Leaflet, myself, we're all fascists and grifters in the eyes of this individual, and we deserve everything that's coming to us. And, well, you can see their hat. It says, "This machine kills fascists." First of all,
do you think I could get away with wearing a hat that says like "communists aren't human" or some shit? Do you think I could wear that?
No.
Do you think I could get away with
I mean, she probably could not, even though I would argue that Marxism is as evil as Nazism. Now, granted, for a different reason than Nazism was, I would argue that they're rather similar in how evil they actually are, because because they're both effectively doomsday cults that are focused on the transformation of man in his essence into a Superman. They use different language, but fundamentally they share that same basic goal. They just disagree on how to actually get there. The Nazis were racial collectivists, and the Marxists were economic collectivists. But it's still about the obliteration of the individual for the rebirth of the human race into a Edenic state. So about basically man, in a sense, becoming his. What would be a good way to say it? Marx said it best again when he said, "Man is not truly free until he becomes creator of his own species being." Because creator is the thing that makes you, obviously. So self-made. Species being very important because these are, despite the fact he said metaphysics was bullshit, the fact he uses metaphysical terms is actually quite enlightening to tell us what exactly he means. Because species is what a thing is, and a being is that a thing is. So man is not truly free until he becomes that which is the root, the creator, of that he is and what he is. So in a sense, it's it is the deification of man project, which is again exactly what the Nazis were trying to do. They were trying to find the deification of man as a collective. That's what the Ubermensch was. That's why Hitler was literally trying to channel the spirit of Odin. If you ever get the chance, look up a painting of the Wild Hunt with Odin, and you'll notice that someone in that painting looks very suspiciously similar to Hitler, and that's because Hitler was a fan of the painter, and he modeled his look off of the depiction of Odin because he tried to, like a shaman, channel the All Father, which is the title of Odin, as the leader of the Germans. And this is important because if you read the works of Rudolf Jung is very, the guy who actually founded National Socialism. It's very clear the god of the National Socialist is not the god of the Jew, the quote unquote desert spirit of desolation, but rather the All-Father, which is Odin. So, yes, they were both self-deification cults, but they were deification cults of the collective. The individual must die so that the collective can become God. It's the same thing the fascists were trying to do. So,
With that, do you think I can even find a hat that says that? Hold on a second. Brother. Even searching for kill communists hat. And it's all just actual communist hats? Okay, there's a commie killer one here. Hold on. There's one that says commie killer. I found one. Why was that so fucking hard to find?
because it's just the sacred cow, to be perfectly honest. One group of mass murderers gets, privileges. The other group of mass murdering ideologues, because yes, the murder of the bourgeoisie is foundational in orthodox Marxism, to be perfectly honest. Now, granted, there are unorthodox Marxists, so you do have to pay attention to who specifically you're talking about, because there will be people in the Marxian tradition who actually don't vibe with the murder part. But yes, mass murder is a part of orthodox Marxism in its doctrine and praxis.
Great, we're getting added to another list. What? Why would we get added to a list? Why is it not okay to wear a kill a commie for mommy hat
コミュニスト相手だ遠慮はいらん
when this guy is wearing a this machine kills fascist hat? He's specifically calling individuals fascist in his video. I'm not calling him a commie.
Shiver me.
Honestly, this gives me an idea. Maybe I should draw someone wearing this hat kills this machine kills fascists, but have that same character wear kill a commie for mommy as a shirt. That actually might make a interesting rage bait engagement post. So I might actually be drawing something soon.
Timbers. Wow, this guy is really off the edge. I'm very nervous right now. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we know what you mean. You should say it with your chest. But anyways, let's get into this very enthralling video.
This video is drama slop and politics slop. I am warned.
I was not ready for that voice to come out of that femboy. I'ma be real with you.
I mean, I agree with Kirsha here. The femboy is best when, the voice is actually kind of cute. This voice does not fit the pot kettle situation, right? I'm pretty sure you can look at my PNG and be like, that voice does not match that character. Fair enough. So this is definitely this is definitely a spec versus mote and eye situation right now. But yeah, the voice did throw me too, to be perfectly honest. I'm at least self-aware to realize that I'm being a little bit hypocritical in this observation.
You now, if you don't want to see drama slop and politics slop about the VTuber community, then I suggest you do not watch this video.
Okay. Before we get into anything, again, I'm sorry to pause again.
Calls himself a femboy, has the worst femboy voice. At least pretend to try, you know?
Just know this. Listen to his opinions and listen to his voice. This guy is literally the VTuber Vosh.
I'm so glad
Literally,
Rev also brought up
to
the
his
voice.
core, who is, again, someone I've criticized many years ago for accidentally leaking his folder after years and years of calling anime fans predators over their choices. He had a folder that got leaked. It had lolly hentai on there, as well as horse-related stuff. Really on...
Shades, dude, thank you. This Machine Kills Fascist is a reference to Woody Guthrie, a folk singer. Funnily enough, Fallout New Vegas has an M1 Grand with the words, "Well, this Machine Kills Commies" written on it as a joke. That's funny. That's funny. I'm gonna
That actually went totally over my head as well. I'm not gonna lie.
have to make some Kill a Commie for Mommy merch at some point, because I just think that would be hilarious.
brand for Vosh, but yeah, this guy sounds exactly like him, and his opinions sound exactly like him. But let's continue.
Thank you for your attention to this matter. So I've been aware of the phenomenon of right-wing VTuber grifters for a while now. I mean, I guess it makes sense that they exist because lots of
I believe that they're a grifter and they're they don't believe anything they say, but they're still a fascist and we should kill them. They're causing damage, and I just don't like that they make more money than I do.
Kirsha has a good point, actually, to pull that out. The whole, he's a grifter, but he's still a fascist. I mean, obviously we all know that the reason they call you a grifter, because grifter is a dual meaning word. To the exoteric definition, the one everyone on the outside is going to understand, is this person doesn't believe what they say. The esoteric meaning, so the insider meaning, is that this person is again an enemy, specifically one marked for life ruination and a potential assault or even death. Um, it is an act of it is spell casting right here. But that being said, that's actually a really good point. He's a grifter, but he's a fascist. Like, which one is it? Like, to be perfectly honest, like it is possible. It is possible to grift, so to hold a position for monetary benefit that you do not hold, even within like an evil community. There are probably a number of cult leaders who are grifters who spout their teachings but don't actually believe them because it benefits but just because they can get benefits from doing this. But that being said, is there any reason to believe that either Rev or Kirsha or Leaflet or Celestium or or any of these other people like Powder are actually grifters? It's the whole thing where it's like they call you this thing so that the outsider doesn't listen to you. It's the same thing like when you call someone crazy, since you can't vet everyone that you end up like having to interact with. You do have to rely on other people reporting to a certain degree of the people around you, like as like a secondhand report, right? It's like, oh yeah, don't mind him. He's it's a schizo across the road, right? That kind of thing. It's like I don't have the time to meet everyone, so I do have to testimony. That's what you have to rely on, testimony for some people. And if you immediately poison the well by telling someone that person's crazy or that person's a grifter, i.e., a liar, then you disincentivize people from listening to them in the first place. Which again, not all that unexpected from someone who's admitted to making propaganda. So, shit. Okay, that was the wrong one again.
VTuber culture tends to kind of skew a little bit left wing.
That was another thing I forgot to say. So yeah, but that's an internal contradiction that you can point out there. It's like, look, is he a grifter or is he a fascist? Because obviously we know we are very well aware that this individual does not mean what he says. He is just marking people for life ruination. Whereas someone who may not be aware of the malevolent motivations behind this person may not be able to see that. So then, if you point out the internal contradiction in their language, you can actually help to get people up to speed about what this is doing. So, and this point about the VTuber culture leaning left is completely horseshit. Yeah, in America, the VTuber community, at least in terms of content creators, skews left because for some reason conservatives and don't want to really make art. Like they want to outsource the mode of cultural production to like sensitives who oftentimes are left wing leaning, and that ends up meaning that the mode of cultural production is invariably controlled by the left, uh, which is just I would associate this as to like a retreatist mentality because there's that whole thing where I was talking to someone actually earlier today when we were talking about why a lot of the left is starting to act up now, which is midterms are soon, and a lot of them are a little worried that if they lose the midterms, this could be for their movement an existential crisis. So they're going to get more aggressive about this as the midterms pop up. And as I said to a friend of mine, I'm not a big fan of the Republicans either, but never underestimate a Republican's power to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. So there's that whole thing with the spineless do-nothings Kirsha has complained about in the past. Well, it's like it's not just spineless do-nothings. You got people in the allegedly right-wing party voting along blue left-wing lines. It's like, what are we doing here, right? So again, I think that that's part of the reason why they're becoming a lot more aggressive right now. Is that this is a bit of into their perspective, an existential crisis. Now that being said, you should be very worried about that because the left is not used to the right wing fight and whatever the hell that means, because right wing doesn't mean anything. Again, what is the similarity between an anarcho-capitalist and a Nazi, right? Anarcho-capitalist is an anarchist. The Nazi is a racial socialist. One believes in collectives, the Nazi. The other one does not believe in collectives, the anarchist. Then you have, for example, one's a capitalist, the anarcho-capitalist. One is like again, we already talked about a socialist. Any business in the Nazi regime was controlled by the Nazi Party. There was a member of the board in every company in the in Nazi Germany that had overriding authority over the rest of the board. So there's no free exchange of goods in that particular setup. One is highly rational. Anarcho-capitalists tend to be the most rationalistic people you'll ever meet. The other one is the peak of mysticism. Nazis tend to be some of the most mystical people you will ever meet. So there is almost no overlap between these two worldviews, but they're considered right wing because it is the Marxists who wrote a lot of the history after the defeat of after World War II was over, because there was the Marxist infiltration of academia, and they're the ones who actually arranged the left right dichotomy. They're the ones who defined this incoherence in the first place, which is why we shouldn't be using left and right. We should be using libertarian and authoritarian because this is more accurate. The libertarian authoritarian distinction centers around who gets to make the decision, where the locus of authority is. Economic libertarianism would say you get to use the authority to use your money lies with you. An economic authoritarian would say, no, there's an external authority who gets to decide where you get to use your money. That's why your taxes get so fucking high, by the way. Same thing with civil liberties. Who actually gets to decide how you live your life? Is it you, or is it some external authority? Or again, cognitive liberty, which is where these totalitarians come in. A kind of authoritarian, but not all authoritarians are totalitarian. Who gets to decide how you think? Do you get to decide how you think? Or does an external authority get to decide how you think? This is where the thought crimes in places like the United Kingdom come in. So, yeah, the libertarian authoritarian distinction on multiple axes is a more accurate way to understand how people in the real world actually think. Because most people in the real world do not actually have a coherent philosophy of the world. They don't have a coherent metaphysic. They mostly just live through vibes, which I guess is fine for most people. But again, this is a better way to articulate where people actually stand on a given issue. This even goes with the pro-life thing, by the way. Like, anyway, so I we'll talk about that later when I guess tomorrow I watch the leaflet video on the abortion debate.
And when it comes to people who like VTubers, there are a lot of loser virgin chuds looking for a home, who
This is, notice the use of virginity as an insult. All they've done is they've inverted the use of your sexual history as an insult, but they're still doing the use of sexual history as an insult. He is not doing anything any more distinct than calling someone a whore, except instead of placing the reckless use of your sexual capacity as the point of the shame, he's using your sexual discipline or your inability to find a partner as the point of shame. But he's still highlighting sexual prowess or sexual behavior as the point of shame, which is odd because what that means is that there is a sort of right and wrong way again to live that particular life, and choosing chastity is apparently the wrong thing to do.
Rev is
Oh,
married.
guys, I guess I'm a chud. Happily married man.
Oh no, he called us chuddy buddies. No.
And again, this guy probably knows that Rev is married, obviously, but it doesn't matter because again, dude must still be a virgin because he is this particular position. The content of the word itself, what the word means, and its relation to other words, is completely vacuous to this person because what matters is not the word itself, but the effect the word has on the listener. So again,
Oh, not the delicious chocolate treats.
Turns out I'm a chud, and anyone who's gainfully employed or has a significant other, you're a chud too. But,
Hey, yo, when this guy gonna
that's
die
just the
from
way
a
it
dog
goes,
semen
according
allergy?
to this individual. But
oof, that's a bit of a yeah, that was an awkward episode of the Kirsha experience to listen to. Actually, you know what? I just realized I should probably move my my avatar.
they bring up the term grifter. We're going to see this over and over again. This is one of the many definitions of grifter. Now, there's many variations, but the overall premise is the same. It's someone who has fake beliefs, someone who fakes their political or cultural beliefs just to make a buck, just to deceive people, and it's on the accusers like this who believe, myself and the others.
There was someone the other day that said on Twitter that the way that you can tell that someone is absolutely a grifter is that they're consistent with their beliefs. And I was like, that's wild, man.
That's actually a pretty good way to demonize integrity. Because if you stick to your first principles, the foundations of your beliefs, then presumably your statements are going to be rather self-consistent. And again, if that's the sign of a grifter, then it means that integrity itself is actually grifting. And again, I just actually realized as they were talking, this is just projection. Because again, the whole point of propaganda is to cast a spell. And the spell is cast largely through deception. It's like propaganda is just the Marxist version of what the Muslims would call kitman or taqiya, which is, or dawa, which is deception for the purposes of spreading the ideology. Now, granted, the terminology is a little bit more sophisticated in Islam for some reason, but that's all he's doing. And there is this there's this interesting thing where when you don't address the contents of your own shadow, that's the part of yourself that you don't particularly like, but is still part of you, so you don't really address it until it surfaces. Um, when you don't address your shadow, what ends up often happening is that your shadow expresses itself through your unconsciously through your behavior, and oftentimes it does this through shadow projection, which is where you project those parts of yourself you don't like onto someone else so that you can attack that person and vicariously oppose your shadow without actually doing any of the work to integrate your shadow to yourself. Um, so but there's also shadow possession, which I think shadow possession is a large part of what we're seeing right now with the left, where since you don't address that part of yourself which needs to be, integrated, that part of yourself you don't particularly like, so you push it to the back of your brain, what ends up happening is that that part of yourself that you don't like ends up controlling you and modifying how you behave. And obviously shadow projection is one way that it controls your behavior, but when it becomes all consuming, that's shadow possession. And I think we might actually be seeing a large scale example of shadow possession with how a lot of these people actually act, because oftentimes they end up being guilty of all of the things that they accuse other people of. You got to remember Vosh again. They brought up the thing where he leaked his lolicon and his horsecock, porn files. So it's like, hey man, you were complaining about all this stuff yourself, and then you turned out to be doing the exact same thing. That's a excellent example of projection right there. Um, oh my god, that was a fucking fiasco. But yeah. So all of that, the whole calling someone a grifter is just projecting propaganda onto the person. They're doing propaganda, and they can't really see that someone else would actually have the integrity to say what they believe and stand behind it. So then they project that onto you. That is definitely the kind of operation. I don't want to use the word energy because that has like a magical connotation. People tend to have it, but energy just means operation. That's the kind of psychical operation I kind of get from this.
Holy shit.
Included in this video are grifters. Like, show us where we are faking opinions for monetary gain. Because if I'm a grifter, this is I'm really bad at it, okay? Because this whole video is celebrating me losing my sponsorship.
Yeah, I was like, if I was trying to be a grifter, why would I pick a dangerous path that gets a whole bunch of freaks trying to get me demonetized everywhere? That gets people going after my sponsors? That gets people trying to get me removed from conventions? That gets people trying to cause problems with my friends to get them to leave me? Why would I do that? Why would I take a path that I don't believe in if it's a million fucking headaches? Instead of just coming on stream and being like, yes, queen, trans rights, and then collecting my normal money dollars. Like,
She said the shahada. She said one of the leftist shahadas. Trans rights. What does that mean? What are trans rights? What distinct rights do trans people have that everyone else doesn't? The answer to that is none. There are no distinctly trans rights. Like, the only rights that people who are trans have are the rights that everyone else has. That's it. There are no distinct identity rights. There is no, like, there are there are none. And the reason why is because rights in the classical conception, and the only really coherent conception, by the way, don't stem from the state. So the government doesn't give you rights, but rather they stem from the natural order. Presumably, like in the English tradition, they stem from the nature of man as a rational animal itself. And so, since all human beings participate in the nature of man, the nature of rational animal, all human beings, by definition, partake in, have these intrinsic human rights. Now, whether or not man respects the rights of man is a different story, and that's where ethics comes in. But, you know, it doesn't mean anything, and that's kind of the point. First of all, it's just a declaration that, like, again, it's just a shahada. It is just a, I am keeping the faith. You don't even have to believe it. You just have to say it. And I think they say something about this later, but I haven't actually seen the video. I was just told something like this happens later in the video.
What are we doing here?
With advanced.
They think you have a humiliation fetish?
Funny.
Projection.
Not because they actually believe with
fair fucking enough. Right.
An actual reason that I'm some fascist crazy person. They just disagree with some of my takes. And that's really it. It's really sad. So it's on the accuser to prove that I am literally faking my opinion.
To be fair, Candace Owens and Jake Shields are mega grifters, and they're incredibly consistent to that the Jews did it. Whatever it was! It's like, yeah, but it's not the consistency that makes them a grifter. It's the things that they say. Right? Like, when you look at Candace Owens and she's just like, by the way, you can summon Charlie Kirk face down in trap mode, and you'll be able to attack the enemy's Norse god. Right? Like, when they say shit like that, you're like, well, that'd be funny if you were joking, but I have a feeling you're not joking.
The thing is, with the Candace Owens things, like, I never took her seriously. Like, I remember back in a previous job I was working, I was talking to a coworker who listened to Candace Owens. Like, I talked to a lot of people who listen to a lot of different things. And I remember telling them, it was like, because we had a whole conversation about this, about whether or not Candace Owens was legitimate. And I, like, immediately clocked, like, no, I don't believe this woman. Like, I do not trust her in any way, shape, or form. I'm not entirely sure what it is. Well, there's something about the disposition that just seems off to me. And I feel as if I have been vindicated in time for that. And the same thing with, like, Nick Fuentes, where it's like, I don't really trust this person. I don't really believe that this person actually is a good representative of anything conservative, to be perfectly honest. Not to say that I'm conservative, but understanding conservative values, I don't really see this as being a good representative of, like, conservatism in any way, shape, or form. He just seems, again, like a transgressive. And it just happens to be that if the left is in power, then the way you're transgressive is if you, like, appeal to the right, whatever the hell that means, right? And with the dropping of the Epstein files and the whole, oh, Epstein was actually cool. I think I've been vindicated on that particular individual as well, to be perfectly honest. Like, my suspicions about this kind of stuff seem to be fairly coherent. Like, I didn't like Pam Bondi at all when she started. Couldn't tell you why. I just didn't trust her. Didn't really trust Kash Patel either. And I seem to have been vindicated on that. That's not to say I'm always right. I have made several misjudgments in time. I just happened to point out some of the ones I was actually right about.
For the sole purpose of monetary gain. But let's continue.
Feel like they can't find a VTuber who represents their politics, their shitty, toxic, awful politics. So, obviously there's a market, which leads to the rise of the right-wing grifter VTuber. A lot of them are based.
I'm going to stop there to point out, like, He just described emotional content there. He didn't really give any kind of informational content there. Like, those series of words don't actually tell you anything about what the person that they're talking about actually believes. And that's by design, because again, there is no real attempt to engage with what the people they're disparaging actually believe. Because in order to do that, it would require some degree of humility and actually treating these people as if they're human, which, again, this machine kills fascists. There seems to be some kind of ontological distinction between him and them in his own brain that, again, these should die, but these should live. Really slippery slope with the rhetoric here.
Basically, just kind of copying Asmongold's YouTube channel. It's a lot.
I'm pretty sure Asmongold was still like 24/7 World of Warcraft when I started doing VTubing, man.
A lot of just like.
I actually kind of want to know this. Like, if anyone could tell me who actually started Kirsha or Asmongold on this stuff, I would really like an answer to that, because actually that's really interesting. Because if it turns out Kirsha was first, that would be fucking funny.
Gamergate reaction content and just general politics reactions. And
so I like how they're calling out like, oh, the grifter content, the Asmongold copy content. Like, you're not going to see any actual criticisms of anything I say.
How dare you talk about news where you live that you might care about? How dare you care about things that I don't care about?
Right here. Like this video, for example, he's citing as an example of this. How am I wrong? How am I wrong? The game on the left that does not want to play into modern day stuff has double the wish lists of a very similar genre of a game that says they want to play into the modern agenda. How am I wrong?
Also,
Like,
I just
it's
kind of
on you
realized
again.
something. This guy is bitching about Rev, and his model basically looks like Rev but blue. They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
You're calling me out.
Oh my god! You know what? I kind of see it now. Oh my god! It's just the leftist Rev. Fucking hell, mate! I actually didn't even notice that. That's a good call out, actually. But also, again, Rev is doing this obviously for a rhetorical purpose of showing that this is completely incoherent, not for the people who believe what he's talking about, but for the people who may not know any better but aren't on board with the propagandistic element of this, right? It's like, again, you don't correct the liars to correct the liars, you correct the liars in order to, prevent people from falling from, continuing to fall for the lie. That's not the button I'm intended to press. But yeah, they made the comparison of this is just the VTuber Vosh, and I mean, if that's the case, I mean, Vosh literally did in one of his streams in a debate say he doesn't care about being right. His principle is winning. So consistency be damned, integrity be damned. The only thing that matters is victory, which is part of the eschatological ethic. Like, if you believe in it, I guess, let's go with Vosh, remember? Because the left is very highly defined by an eschatological ethic. There's an end goal, a utopia at the end of history, which all of history is working towards. If utopia is the end goal, and any means is justified, then yeah, integrity and virtue and truth, if they actually stand in the way of forging the utopia, this speculative metaphysic that we can create as we transform what we are through the dialectical process, yeah, none of that matters, because victory is the only measure of value. It is literally that simple. Like, all of them, whether they be Nazis, Marxists, fascists, whether they be I mean, I guess you could call Juche an offshoot of Marxism, because it's not really Marxist, but it is very, very similar. All Hegelian ideologies. The idea that, again, God is acting in history through the collective, and the end state is going to be the reunification of man with God. Um, that all of them have this whole, again, the ends justify the means type thing. So it doesn't matter whether or not you have integrity. All that matters is that you win. So That's a thought that just came to mind there. So about the eschatological ethics underlying all this.
Explain how I'm
Rev it
wrong
home.
in this video.
And awful, shitty opinions about current events. Yeah, no, it's a awful cesspool of bootlicking and bullshit. But you know, it pays the bills, I guess.
Again, none of that actually elaborates on what anyone has actually said. It is emotional content, but there's no informational content on there. The closest thing to informational content there is the part about the bootlicking, which carries some implications, but the implications are not specific enough to be meaningful.
Literally just today.
What was your opinions on what happened during COVID, buddy man? What did you think of that?
That is a fucking good question. I did not think to ask when I first watched the original video. Oh my god. Hold on. First time chatter. Don Homer 57. Who the hell is even streaming this like 4 cartoons? That is a good fucking point. We have hit reactception at this point. It is the girl with the blue hair and the red skin in the bottom left hand corner, the one with the very manly voice. And by manly, I don't mean like testosterone. I just mean male.
I'm curious.
Hey, I made the.
But yeah, that is a good point. How did for all of this talk about like bootlicking, what about the fucking lockdowns? What were your opinions on that? Because I can't help but notice a lot of the people who were accusing, like the people who happen to actually support the idea of immigration enforcement, also supported the idea of forcefully locking down, businesses and people in their homes. Just saying, that is pretty fucking bootlicky too. And again, like that is closer to fascism by definition than in enforcing your immigration laws. Just saying.
The mistake of thinking to myself, what's going on in the right-wing VTuber grifter sphere?
Why would you care
And I
if
went
you hate
ahead
us?
and looked, and was immediately made.
He cares because it's in the thing he said earlier. He said he hates you. If you understand what love and hate are, it will enlighten you as to why he cares. Because love is not an emotion. Love is scholastically defined, and correctly defined, by the way, as the willing of the good of another, actively working towards the supreme good of someone else. So love is by definition always externally directed. So you are required to be self-interested, but what was the well shit, I lost my train of oh yeah. So you are required to be self-interested, but you are also required to have the best interests of others in mind. Hatred is like apathy, the dialectical opposition of love, but hatred is specifically the willing of the worst for another. And so if you are actively invested in the worst for someone, then yes, you are invested in what they're doing because you want to see them suffer. That's why he already admitted he hates you. So yes, he's going to be invested in what you're doing because he wants to see you, broke, destitute, and and hurt, impoverished. So yeah, that explains why. If he was apathetic to you, if he didn't give a shit, then yeah, this would be completely unexplainable. But he told you exactly why he cares. Um, Don Homer 57 says, I'm impressed that you're shutting out about socialism mostly correctly because a lot of socialists and communists online don't understand it as well as you sound like you do. Oh, I mean, I come from a more metaphysical background. Like I incorporate a lot of what Eric Voegelin observed about these movements. Uh, so I don't take it from a sociological first perspective. I take it more from a where do these ideas necessarily like where do they come from genealogically? What do they actually imply about reality around us? And what are the nested assumptions in these worldviews? Um, so that is the way I tend to view this stuff, which is why I decided to react to the Kirsche video because I assumed that Kirsche was uh, but what you're describing is Leninism, who was more of a chud about it. Marx didn't think in terms of morally good. No, I agree. I am very well aware of that. I'm very well aware of that. I did have the whole spiel about Marx talking about using very specific terms that are enlightening to how he views the world, especially the idea that man is not really free until he becomes creator of his own circumstances, and that the entire Marxist project is to change the, and I quote, species being of man, which is very alchemical in its description. And soys just adopt whatever position allows them to be more antisocial, freakish. So in this case, like they're like Lenin. Yeah, I would entirely agree. Again, because morals don't really matter if the end state is the salvation, even if it's not personal salvation, but like salvation of some the collective through the dialectical process where you reach utopia. So the end of history, the purpose of history. Um, in that particular case, if you exist for the collective, then and because history uses and discards you, then your own personal virtue doesn't matter. What happens to you doesn't really matter. What happens to other people doesn't really matter because history uses and discards you. It also explains why leftists don't forgive people when they cross them. It's because history uses and then discards you. And if history has discarded you, history has no use for you. So the entire project of these groups is very similar to Rocco's Basilisk in that Rocco's Basilisk looks back in upon all of history before it and judges with with appraise those who bring it into being and judges with condemnation those who stood in opposition to its coming into being. And that is fundamentally what the like socialist man at the end of history is. It's what would you call it? It's basically a divine judge, a secular Christology. The secular man at the end of history is not God per se, even though he is creator of his own species being, which is a creator of that he is and what he is, which does sound like a supplantation of God, but he is also the judge of history. So he fills a Christological role. Let's see. I gotta go move into a new house. Fair enough. Well, best of luck with your with what you're doing. I'm gonna continue trying to analyze this.
Angry by how stupid this current drama is.
Yeah, I agree. It was stupid. It was a public conversation. There shouldn't have been any backlash outside of people talking on Twitter. Rev is allowed to call Lala dumb. You're allowed to call Rev dumb. We're all pissing in the ocean of piss. It's when you go after sponsors, you become the shit cunt. What are we doing here?
Again, he's
Yeah, because I honestly I have a very strong suspicion if this person had a sponsor and then this happened in reverse to where he was put in Rev's position, even for the exact same reason that Rev was put in this position. So we're just flipping around the politics here. He would probably bitch and moan about it, to be perfectly honest. Like I think I can make this assumption with a high degree of certainty here and not be accused of being unreasonable. But that's just my personal assessment of that.
citing the whole advanced situation where I talked about the VTuber Miss Lala. Again, you can disagree with my take. Do you believe that justifies me having my sponsor removed or calling me like things that I'm not?
The answer is yes, because he hates you. He actively admits he hates you. This is not the worst he would do to you. Do you not see the fucking hat? But I get that, like, again, Rev is styling himself as like the calmer person in this conversation to show how unreasonable this person is being. But that being said,
And accusing me of being a grifter and all these things.
the thing is though, there are again legitimate criticisms you could make about Rev in this entire conversation. Rev did not send anyone to harass Lala. Rev simply was pointing out that it was kind of absurd for her to make that statement, and I actually agree with him, but not for the reason that he gave. I think the specific reason he gave is really stupid, to be perfectly honest. But I do think there's a point that Rev has, which is that if you're not a political streamer and you're mainly doing comfy streams, you probably shouldn't be talking politics because politics is inherently divisive and people are going to raw entertainment to escape politics. This is actually why raw entertainment is important because there needs to be some method of escaping, you know, life and its hardship and just, being able to unwind. That's the purpose of raw entertainment. And that's also why the left went and subverted all of the modes of production about raw entertainment, from animation to literature to comics to video games to even now live streams and VTubers. The purpose of that is demoralization. It is not just so that you have no escape, which will then make you, or to their hoping, make you feel as if you were powerless, but it is also to take those things that you love and destroy them in front of you so that you have no escape. Demoralization and hurting you is the goal. And again, as I tell you, as midterms come up, be very worried because these people are not used to the right, whatever the hell that means, fighting back. So they will enact what they believe to be revenge. And if I'm wrong, I will admit it, but I have a sneaking suspicion if they get power, they will enact what they see to be punitive, legislation against and enforcement against the people who stood in their way.
Clearly, they don't have any evidence of that, but whatever.
I'm not going to sit here and cover like this entire like play-by-play. A lot of it's very stupid, but just as a quick overview, Miss Lala as a VTuber has kind of like a 1950s kind of diner aesthetic to her model and her stream, and she tweets out "fuck ICE," which of course, based good opinion, everybody agrees with this.
Well, clearly not.
Not everyone agrees with this. Like, this is the most disingenuous part of this whole thing. You think everyone agrees with this because you agree with it. You're a narcissist.
Like, oh my god, how dare Rev have an opinion on something that's, like, not even polarizing? Like, if anyone doesn't agree with fuck ICE, they're just, like, not even human?
I mean, Kirsha probably summed it up right there. But, I mean, in all fairness, I'm not going to go into the polylogism thing, but these people really don't see you as equally human as they do. When you're talking Marxism, Nazism, or any of these other dialectical movements, they separate people into at least 2 or maybe 3 different classes, depending on what specific movement you're talking about. And this is important to understand because this actually helps to highlight why it is they feel justified in doing the things that they do. Um, Marxism through Hegelianism actually draws very strongly from the Gnostic tradition. The Gnostic tradition separated human beings into 2 or 3 different classes. I'll use the broad one for right now just so it's easier. So there were the Hylics. These were the materialists. These were the people who could not be reached. There were the psychics. The psychics were the people who had material and spiritual components within them. So they could be talked to, but they could also live alongside the Hylics. And then there were the pneumatics, literally the spiritualists. These were the people who were not materialists, but they were enlightened spirits in, human bodies. These were the people who brought salvation to the psychics, but they could not reach the Hylics. Now, when you bring in class conflict, all we have to do is get rid of the psychics, because I mean there is, even in the class conflict theory, there's obviously some middle ground between them. They're just usually called class traitors because they usually correspond to someone in the oppressed class siding with the alleged oppressor class. But the Gnostic framework works in their worldview because there's no talk between the Hylics and the pneumatics, because you're operating under the assumption that the pneumatics and Hylics think so fundamentally differently that dialogue between each other is completely impossible. Because the pneumatics are at root not really the same kind of entity that the Hylics are. And this is mirrored very closely, if not exactly, to how Marxists and the Nazis actually thought. Why didn't they really dialogue with people? Why were they so violent? The reason they were so violent is because they themselves were polylogists. They believed it was fundamentally impossible, in the Marxist case, for the proletariat and the bourgeoisie to understand each other. And so, if you can't understand each other, dialogue is a waste of time. So violence is the only means of communication between these two groups that can actually get anything moved along. The same thing happens with the polylogism between the Nazis, where they separated human beings into the Aryan and the honorary Aryan and the Jewish classes. You know, and again, if someone from the oppressed class, in which case the Germans saw the Aryans as the oppressed class, and the Marxists see the proletariat as the oppressed class, if any of them happen to side with the other class, then you happen to be a race traitor in the case of Nazism, or you happen to be a class traitor, a real term by the way, in the case of Marxism. And this includes, for example, this is where the concept of the petty bourgeoisie comes from. You should be in the proletariat, but there's a little Hitler particle. Another funny enough real word. I think it was Lenin who invented that one. you know, in this person to make them side with the proletariat. Yeah, it's all Gnostic. It's all Gnostic mystic bullshit, the, masquerading as modern philosophy and science. To be perfectly honest.
Not everyone agrees with this. And despite all
But yeah, so that is why this person feels so comfortable saying kill fascists. Again, he believes in a polylogistic system, and since they literally can't communicate with each other, they can't live peacefully with each other because they can't really talk to each other, which means that the only option is violence. These are not real human beings, according to this person's worldview. It's like, what is that meme with that lady in the plane? It's like, that motherfucker's not real. Kind of that kind of deal, right?
the controversy,
And if anyone is iffy on the Gnostic connection, I will point out that in Das Kapital, although it is rhetorical, it is interesting that this parallel does exist. The god of the Jew is declared to be money, and his religion, so the religion of the Jew in Das Kapital, is capitalism, which is also the religion of, and I quote, huckstering. So, huckstering is deception. Capitalism is the system of oppression and the ideology justifying it. And money is that self replicating asset that generates the system and the ideology. Here you have the whole idea of the false creator who believes he is God, as in the Gnostic ideology, the demiurge. Demiurge, by the way, in Platonism, does not mean a false creator. It means a true creator. Demiurge just means creator. It's just Gnosticism, it means false creator. So you have the false creator who creates a fake reality that estranges man from himself and traps him in a hyper reality, a false reality. That is the Marxist conception. It is literally just an economicization of the Gnostic worldview. And that's because Gnosticism is very prone to parasitizing off of already existing systems. So you had Gnosticism before Christianity and before Judaism. They just happened to be attached to the logic and language of pagans. And then when Judaism and Christianity started taking off, eventually Gnostic ideas began to be grafted into Jewish and Christian worldviews. It did not take these worldviews over, but there are, like, obviously the Cathars, the Sethians, the Ophians, right? The Valentinians. All of these groups attempted to hijack the Christian logic and the Christian language to communicate a Gnostic framework, to kind of like wear the skin of Christianity while not actually adopting the essence of Christianity. And the same thing happened with Judaism and Kabbalah. And what happened when religion became something you could question in the West? Well, Gnosticism had to adapt, and the way it adapted, it took on a secular form. Not really secular. It is a religion, same as any other religion. It just happens to not use religious language the way that you were used to. Anyway,
my tweet responding to this, making a joke about it, it had like over 10,000 likes. At least 10,000 people agreed with me, so clearly you're just wrong.
It's been pointed out the irony of this guy saying the right-wing chud saw how profitable the political was and just do nothing else for money, but after his first political video, he uploaded 3 more. You see, that's how I filter people, right? In between talking seriously about articles about news, I'll just flashbang you with like, and then this guy lost his charging cable inside his urethra.
that is a phrase I did not expect to see today.
I gotta let people know what they're in for, you know?
Okay to have differing opinions and to make quotes of public tweets.
Based opinion. If you don't agree with this, fuck you. That gets quote retweeted.
Okay, so Don Homer 57 says, on the species being mature, Marx went on to critique the Feuerbach influenced idea of human essence and favored the idea that it doesn't exist except as an ensemble of social relations as world historical beings. I mean, you are correct, but this is also why he believed it was possible to transform what man was. Again, that's the whole project of the socialist man. But yeah, the problem with the idea that there is no human essence is that it is a confusion of what the terms mean. Like, for example, form in Aristotle. The entire idea of the scientific endeavor is actually contingent on the Aristotelian concept of what would you call it? Morphe, which is the form. It's a different word than in, for example, Platonism, which is hidea. So these are two wildly different concepts here. And the concept of form in Aristotle is very metaphysically neutral. All it is it is that thing, whatever it is, which makes something what it is. And in any scientific endeavor, when we study things, we assume that those things are, in a very real sense, real, that there are a set of properties that make a thing what it is. So when we're studying human beings, the human essence are those sets of properties that make a thing human and without which that thing would not be human. Same thing with tigers. The same thing with, for example, rock formations. You know, we're talking about things like agate or limestone. Same thing with stars, quasi stars, black holes, electrons. In fact, it's very important actually in the theoretical physics side to be very clear on what exactly we're talking about. Let's see. It doesn't meaningfully answer any questions about human nature in the way species being does, but that's just because he was not really interested in that question in his late writings. Yeah, again, that is correct. He was not interested in metaphysics, but he was often called out by metaphysicians who called him in not so polite terms, a scam artist back in his own day. And it is actually kind of interesting to see how Marx responds to being, let's say, verbally dissected in letters. uh, but that's the problem is Marx again because Marx is again conflating ideas together, and he is also making arbitrary distinctions. Uh, what I did describe is literally form, and that is literally essence. That is, if you break it down to what these words mean, that is all it means. So it's like non-essentialism is a complete no-go if we're talking about like anything from a realistic perspective, because the whole idea behind realism is that things actually exist. In order to exist, they must be something, and there must be something that makes it what it is, and without which it would not be that thing. Otherwise, the world would not be intelligible. The entire project of the scientific, the entire scientific project is kind of predicated on Aristotelian Platonic, assumptions. I would say more Aristotelian than Platonic, but that's just because I don't particularly care for Platonism. I'm not an idealist. um, but yeah, a lot of Marx's writings is very rhetorical and obfuscative, but that doesn't mean that what he writes it doesn't have metaphysical implications for the people who end up reading his works, for example, and carrying it on. Let's see.
By
Good criticism.
Rev, who is one of these just like Gamergate right wing grifter VTubers.
What the fuck is Gamergate? Video game journalism?
Buddy, it's 2026. Why are you calling us Gamergate VTubers?
It's because it's just a spell. Again, it's like the whole right wing thing. Right wing doesn't mean anything. I pointed out, I gave two examples of like far right ideologies that have nothing in common with each other, and yet they're still far right. It's because this doesn't actually mean anything. The people who set up the left right dichotomy academically weren't doing so out of some sense of consistency. They were doing so for ideologically motivated purposes, to reframe history in a way that makes their particular side look good. If they really wanted to actually, again, accurately describe human activity and human like belief systems, they would use a at least 2 axial system, probably 8 or 9 axial system, which would be a lot more difficult, but it would be more comprehensive to how people actually believe, and think about things. So again, the right wing doesn't communicate anything because a lot of things are allegedly right wing but have no real relation to each other. That's because all right wing literally or really means in this particular case is just opposition to the Marxian framework.
This guy.
But even the sister religions of the Marxian framework, as I've already touched upon, are against the Marxian framework, which is why it's placed over there.
This guy's literally like just looking up what can I call these people that will signal to the non-chuddies that I'm on their side. What kind of buzzwords can I use here?
Generally, just like kind of a like
Came against their
hateable human
Vietnam.
being from everything I've ever seen of him.
I'm in
and
the
he
fucking
accuses her.
tunnels,
The funny thing is,
lefty.
like, this person says, like, I'm a hateable individual. Like, despite all the stuff this person's going to talk about in this video, I don't hate this person. I don't think they should lose sponsorships for whatever they're saying. In fact, what they're doing in this video is exactly what
See,
I was...
I'm gonna disagree with Rev here, right? His description literally says, "Let me get this straight. You think it's funny when these conservative content creators lose financial opportunities because people hate them? I do, and I'm tired of pretending it's not." And the thumbnail was a call to action to bully us more. No, I think that if this guy has people contact his sponsors, he's the one who kind of opened that door. He had a call to action. He's saying he thinks it's funny when other people lose these opportunities. He will have no room to talk when his logic comes back to bite him in the fucking ass.
But he still will talk. Let's be perfectly honest. And the thing that gets me upset about Rev and Kangmin Lee on occasion is while their intentions are nice, the problem is that they make arbitrary like divisions that only exist in a modern context of not understanding what these things actually are. For example, there is nothing contradictory about seeking justice and giving forgiveness. Because, first of all, there are different levels of forgiveness and different kinds of forgiveness. You can, for example, forgive someone on a personal level, but still subject them to the judicial system, justice, for a number of different reasons. You can let go of your animosity to someone, but still understand that, hey, maybe the punitive effect of justice might actually do this particular person some good. Now, granted, I actually agree with David Wood that the way that the American system is set up may not necessarily be the best for the restorative system, and the restorative aspect of justice, because justice is oriented both to the punitive and the restorative. Especially if you're Christian, the entire idea is that the punishment itself should have some capacity. Doesn't mean it has to, but some capacity to enable a what would you call it? Not retributive, uh, a regenerative effect on the character of man. Um, but we can get on to like how exactly you do that, and that's again predicated on a Christian worldview. Not everyone is Christian. I don't think Kirsha is one, so I don't really know what her opinions on that is. But you can't really forego the punitive aspect of punishment for exceedingly bad behavior. To be perfectly honest,
accused of doing. I was accused of sending harassment and trying to bully people. This guy is literally saying we need to bully these people more. And he's celebrating us losing platforms or sponsors.
I mean, I'm sure he doesn't have any right now, but if he gets them, I'm sure there will be people who remember this. I'm sure there will be, especially with a call to harass and bully on his video. Yeah, absolutely. And if at any point while we watch this, he actually calls anyone fascist, this machine kills fascists, that's just saying he wants us to die, if he says that in the video.
Over differing.
Well, I mean, you can also say it through implication. You don't necessarily have to say it through direct statement, which this person is very well aware of.
Opinions. This person is doing exactly what the mob was trying to accuse me of doing and use as a justification, despite me not even doing it, to lose opportunities.
Rev did not harass anyone. This guy is calling for more harassment.
There's no self-awareness whatsoever.
Of being a hypocrite because she's a 1950s aesthetic VTuber.
It was a dumb
and
argument.
She hates the
but
current federal agency that's more tame than any law enforcement agency of the time period included in her LARP. And then criticizes her for locking replies. So, like, first off,
being criticized for locking replies is just literally par for the course. Everyone who locks replies on Twitter gets fucking downed for it, dude. That's like the number one rule on Twitter is don't hide replies. That is a pinned comment. Number two, don't lock your replies. You will get bombed even fucking harder.
Yeah, again, it's an etiquette thing. You can simply choose to disengage with a conversation. You can, for example, put that in a comment and say, look, I can't possibly respond to everyone, so this is my statement. honestly, the reasonable people are going to understand that. Or you can also just mute the conversation and ignore it. Like, you do not have to stop people from commenting on it, but you can stop listening to it if you really need to. It is a faux pas online to lock like your replies because it signals again whether or not you intend it to do this, but it does signal that you can't defend your position. Uh, just that is how they will read it. And if you lock your replies, it's also preventing people from giving their opinion just as you gave your opinion. So again, it is just a polite. It is just like a etiquette faux pas that is really grating, to be perfectly honest.
Right? Like if you thought you were safe in your little bunker, it is gonna rain down on you like fucking Dresden if you
Yep.
lock your replies. Just don't fucking do it.
This is not hypocrisy. This is
The hypocrisy is actually in the reply, but he'll get to it. But here's the thing. If you think my take is stupid and you hate all these grifters you included in the thumbnail, let me inform you, because you obviously haven't looked into this. I know that Kirsha, as well as Leaflet, don't agree with my main post. They criticized it too. So if you think they're grifters and I'm the puppeteer behind them, like in the thumbnail, I'm not doing a very good job, am I? Where my little minions are out here publicly disagreeing with
He needs to put us back in the basement and beat us. No.
my take. But here's the difference.
I am not a fan of Riona.
They're mature enough to say, I disagree with his statement. I don't really agree with what he was trying to say there. But I don't think he deserves harassment. I don't think he should be deplatformed. I don't think he should lose sponsorships. I know, very complicated sort of set of logic there, but let's hang on and see what else this.
That would require this individual to believe that you are the same kind of person as they are, you know, with the same intrinsic rights and value. This person does not believe that you are the same kind of person with the same intrinsic rights and values. In fact, given this hat and some of the things he says, I don't think he believes you to have any rights in any real sense, to be perfectly honest. Because again, he doesn't really think that you're as human as he is.
Person has to say.
incredibly stupid point that makes zero sense.
Okay,
Somebody
fair
deciding they want to use a 1950s aesthetic for the VTuber does not require that they agree with 1950s
Fair enough.
politics. I don't understand where this is coming from. The
Yeah, we can give him that. Give the devil his due, right?
whole drama kind
Which
of
is
spirals
fine,
into
right?
some-
Like, everyone's allowed to be like, Rev, that was retarded. Everyone's allowed to say, like, whatever retarded shit back at Rev on Twitter that they want. That's how Twitter works. It is a PvP-enabled zone. It's when you escalate it to, like, you should lose sponsors for this, you sent harassment, and it's like, what you're doing is harassment. What the fuck do you mean?
something stupid in the first place, but this being the starting point is so incredibly dumb. His criticism is so incredibly stupid. It makes no sense. Like,
The first part is a joke. I think everyone knows it was a joke. But the sort of hypocrisy being pointed out is in the replies, but he'll get to it.
oh man, you're a dog VTuber? Oh, but you don't just bark your entire stream and you speak in English? Wow, what a hypocrite. Oh, you're a vampire VTuber and you go out during the day? Oh, hypocrite. It's just
I mean, it was only relatively recently that vampires couldn't go out in the day. Let's be perfectly honest. Anyone who's ever actually read Dracula knows that vampires had no problem being in the sunlight.
dumb. Like, I don't understand what, like, where
Okay,
this
you can
even
think it's
came
dumb,
from.
that's fine.
I don't know. Rev seems like kind of a moron, honestly. Like, I've never thought he was like a very good person, but he also just seems.
It's really weird how, like, all of these response videos to any of us being grifters, they're always, like, super smug, like, they're so dumb, and, like, I'm so much smarter than all of them. Like, oh my god, can you believe just how fucking dumb they are? When all of us are just, like, open about how, yeah, we can be retarded sometimes, man. We don't need to have, like, this smug huffing our own asshole scent all the time. That's why people dislike a lot of the, like, lefty people, because they have this, like, holier than thou, I'm better than you attitude, and it's real fucking weird. It's real fucking Reddit.
Ready to moderator, motherfucker.
I need to clip that. Holy shit, that's a great line. But you know what? That's actually a good point. That is something I didn't exactly think about in this when I was watching the video the first time. Is yeah, he is definitely acting very vain in this particular video. Where it's like, if you watch my videos, you'll see that like I call myself kind of retarded quite often because I will forget where I'm at in like a sentence, or I realize like, oh wait, that's a stupid thing that I said, or I was like, oh well, I actually sometimes turn out to be wrong. I'm not perfect. There are many things you could clown on me about, to be perfectly honest, and I'm totally fine with that because uh, you know like I understand that I am a bit of a fool in some areas, and I'm fine with that. And again, Rev, Kirsha, their head's not up their ass. They do sometimes do. We all sometimes do head up ass things. To be perfectly honest, everyone does it. But we all also understand that yeah, there are times where we're kind of we may lose the plot, and we become you know understandable targets of jokes and ridicule because let's be fair, we are being a little silly sometimes. This, yeah, fair enough. I also, that's a good point. This individual does seem to carry themselves a little bit differently than that. A smugness that is off-putting. Yeah, fair enough. I actually didn't think that. I would agree with that. I didn't think about that.
Kind of stupid. There's a lot of mention thrown back and forth in this exchange of like harassment. None of this is harassment.
So they're saying none of this is
So none of going after Rev sponsors is harassment, but what Rev did is harassment. Rev responding publicly to a public post is harassment, but going after Rev sponsors is not harassment. Why are any of these people taken seriously?
harassment.
Well, I mean, if you look at the responses, 5.2 thousand views 4 days ago, and 656 dislikes to 198 likes, and only 29,600 subscribers. I mean, I don't really think anyone's taking this person seriously, especially when you see their what would you call it, comment section. It seems like everyone is clowning on him, and I have a sneaking suspicion that they're doing this partly for attention, because again, as the honorable chatter said earlier, uh, after this video, and after this video got all the attention, he started making more videos like this. It's like, yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's fine to start making videos that get your channel attention. I mean, you are providing a service, and you know what the customer wants, right? But yeah, I think that was a good point on Kirsch's
Where
part.
my point in this tweet is, well, they kept on one of their partners who was harassing me. They were joining in on the brigade to get me deplatformed. This person doesn't want to show you by clicking on these actual tweets, but you can see right here. An advanced partner said, I will block you if you defend Rev or Straw, my wife. You absolute effing bootlicking weirdos. F ice and absolutely F you. And here's
Oh, they're grifters, but not gonna explain why. Just take my word for it. I love when people post like that fucking Reddit thread of me as proof, and it's like literally everything posted in that thread has been addressed. And it's either they're misquoting me and expecting people to not click on the links and read the full context, which is probably what happens most of the time, or they're saying shit that isn't even real. Like, oh look, her audience calls her Ku Klux Kirsha. It's like, no, the people harassing me called me that, and we made a joke at their expense. What the fuck is going on?
I mean, to be fair, they could also justify that as like, well, your haters are part of your audience because they're because they're watching you, and they're consuming your content, whether it be your X posts, even if to just lol farm you. But I mean, it's an obviously disingenuous way to frame that. It's obviously again an attempt to smear reputation destruction by twisting what actually is going on. But yeah, so I don't think anyone really needs to have that explained. It's just yeah, I'm a little tired, as you can tell. Started this late, and it's gonna be much later, it seems.
Logic is not the left strong suit. It's not even that it's their strong suit. Like, lies are their weapon.
Oh my god! Actually, you know what? Fair enough. There was funny enough to the chatter's point. I won't be able to pull this up right now, but I think I have a video on my channel where I'm talking about the Renee Good shooting, and actually, there is a scene where in that video where one of the ladies, literally talking to a black ICE agent, says, "Don't think feel. Literally telling him, because again, our nature as human beings is we are rational animals. Reason is our unique power. And she's asking you to turn off your reason and to instead think like an animal, to think through this, through passion and, sensible passion. And it shocked me because it's like very obviously a complete betrayal of the human being down to an ontological level. But it actually explains a lot. Like, you're not meant to think, you are meant to, in many of these cases, feel, be led by your passions in this particular case, no matter where your passions lead you, even if it happens to be a destructive path. Uh, I have to find it later.
They have to lie in order to make their enemies seem real. Adam Holtz, thank you. These people are solipsists. They cannot imagine having right-wing worldviews, so they assume other people only think the way that they do because they're grifting. True?
Another tweet included saying, anyway, I'm muting this now because I'm not putting up with you weirdos defending someone who wouldn't spit.
I had another screenshot of this person sent to me, but I like to verify things, so I'm waiting for like a verification before I pull it out.
On you if you're on fire. And they continue down here saying, F-Ice, F-Rev,
The cancer
and
faking
F-you
one.
if you defend
It's not a
either.
screenshot about her cancer.
Get back on your knees where you belong and keep licking. Maybe they'll praise you eventually because God knows your parents did it. This is not criticism. Are you serious? You don't want to click on these actual posts I shared because you know this is not just criticism. It is harassment. This is harassment. There's no
Well, this is how they have to frame things, right? Because you are just de facto bad guy.
valid criticism. All this is dogpiling on a situation where an active partner with the same company I was in at the time was trying to actively go against one of her fellow partners and joined in on the brigade to get us removed.
Now, it doesn't strike, it strikes me as bizarre that, like, you wouldn't have in these companies some kind of, like, clause in your contract that you will not go after each other as sponsors. That just seems like that should be in your, like, agreement, well, business agreements, that if you do that kind of thing, you're going to be immediately terminated from your contract. I don't understand why that's not in the contract in the first place, because that's fucking ridiculous. Like, why would you even, like, especially if this, I mean, maybe they didn't think that something like this would happen, but especially after something like this happens, that needs to be in the contract, to be perfectly honest.
Rev is correct. Like, quoting a tweet is not harassment, even if you're mean, even if what you're saying is really stupid. Nobody harassed anybody here. It feels like a lot of people are just like weaponizing that word to make it seem like the person on the other side of the conflict did.
If you don't think Rev harassed anyone, then what's the point of this whole fucking video? What's the fucking point, bro?
Something like morally indefensible so that they can kind of gain the high ground, and all that's kind of dumb.
Literally what this entire video is. This entire video is disagreeing with someone and using that as the moral high ground to justify anything that happens to them.
Jesus Christ.
This is literally the entire video. He's looking in a mirror right now.
Yup.
However, locking your reply...
Hold on. I found it. Okay, let's see if dragging it over here will... Okay. Hold on. There we go.
The fact that a U.S. citizen was murdered by ICE.
The way I feel is, I watched the video on multiple different angles.
That is not a feeling. How do you feel? Feel it here, in your heart.
Okay, and like I was...
There you go.
I watched the video on multiple different angles.
That
He was
is not
standing
a
in-
feeling.
he was
How do you
standing-
feel? Feel it here, in your heart.
Okay, and like
He's using his human faculty, his capacity for reason. He's like, I'm thinking. This is what I think. I've watched the video from several angles. And then her response.
Not a feeling. How do you feel? Feel
That's not a feeling. How do you feel?
it here, in your heart.
Okay, and
That is a demand of treason against yourself in your very human nature. To stop thinking as a human being and to think as an animal. Very bizarre.
like I was saying,
Your immigrant mother.
right?
Feel it in.
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, so the whole thing isn't what we need to see, but let's go.
Guys, when you're getting a lot of hate, like, that's valid.
No. If you want to not have an increase in the fire, do not lock your replies. And this is why I said I don't think Lala's a political VTuber, so I don't think she understood what she was doing when she locked the replies. But if you're used to the PvP landscape of Twitter, you know that locking your replies sends up a signal flare saying, right here, fresh meat, attack me.
Yeah, I mean, as a former troll, again, I've told the story before. I used to be a cannibal troll, so I would troll trolls. But the the last thing you want to be is an easy target for trolls, because trolls delight in ruining your day. To be perfectly honest, even cannibal trolls delight in ruining the day of trolls. Uh, that said, yeah, it's like, again, that is actually a good point. Well, another reason you don't particularly do this is because you mark yourself as someone who can't defend themselves from being trolled, which again is where you get people harassing you. They're not even sent by Rev or anyone else. They're just, oh wait, easy me. That's actually a really good point.
I like that. That is what that is. I don't make the rules on Twitter. I have to play by them. I know what locking replies does to someone, man. It's like throwing water on a grease fire. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And again, free advice. If you make a post and people are posting things under that tweet that you don't like, if you hide them, hidden replies are pinned replies. Those will be the first thing people check, and whatever you hide will be used as ammo against you.
I never hide replies, so I actually legitimately didn't know this. So this is actually really good information going forward.
The idea that you're like not allowed to lock your replies, or that you're like obligated somehow to allow people to comment under your post and like be toxic towards you, like that's...
Bro, you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? You don't have to check your notifications. You can just fucking send tweet, and then
You can also just mute. You can mute a particular thread. X allows you to do that.
and leave. Like,
it's so stupid. I don't understand like where people got this idea that you're required to sit there and read all of like the criticism about you and like allow it to be aired out.
why
You're
would you
allowed
sit there and read
Yeah,
all of
you're allowed. It's freedom of association. You do not have to sit there and read stuff. You can block people, you can lock replies. But the reason I pointed out this hypocrisy from the beginning is that Lala replied to me.
Yep.
And the first thing she said is, if you want to have a conversation about my actions, then come to me and let's have a conversation.
If Rev had gone to Lala's DMs instead of posting publicly, I would have said that that's weird. Because it is. If you're having a public conversation on Twitter about public matters and someone takes it to DMs, that's fucking weird. That's fucking strange, and I would assume they have some kind of ulterior motive.
I would agree. I mean, considering how easy it is to actually fake a screenshot of like DMs, I would not trust someone to take that conversation to DMs under those circumstances. Or if I were to do that, like, I would be screenshotting every fucking aspect of that conversation to cover my own ass. But
for trying to talk about it in DMs instead. Again, this comes across as a person who is just naive about how Twitter works in general.
While locking the replies on the main tweets. That is the whole point. That was the whole point. That's the hypocrisy. You know this, but you don't want to say it. It's so obvious. That is the hypocrisy. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't say, let's have a conversation, referring to a tweet where you blocked any chance at a conversation.
To curate your social media space. Like, if you don't want to see criticism of yourself, like, that's fine. Lock your comments.
Okay.
Who cares? And anybody...
you can also just mute your comment section, which doesn't give trolls anything to really work with. Just not that, again.
It's not
who
in this scenario.
criticizes you
It's
and implies
hypocritical.
that you are like required to allow public dogpiling of yourself.
I don't know why he keeps saying required.
Also, the public dogpiling will happen anyway. You can quote retweet someone who locks their replies. So that actually doesn't even stop the dogpiling.
I don't know why he keeps saying that. I get so much like insanely ridiculous and hateful and over-the-top things in my quote retweets and in my replies. And I assume that happens on quite a few more tweets than the ones that I even see. And you know what I do? I just ignore it. Maybe I report it if it's fucking crazy insightful. Maybe I block the person if they're doing something incredibly harmful. But it's like, you don't have to check all your notifications, buddy, man. That's crazy. The DM would have been harassment too. I would have called that harassment. If you're having a public Twitter, like, spat even, and then someone tries to take it to your DMs and doesn't initiate with a, hey buddy, I'm sorry, I'd be like, why are you taking it to DMs? That's weird. That could be seen as harassment.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. I wouldn't have taken it to DMs anyway, because it's like, I don't really trust that this is going to be, like, again, not manipulated, but,
just don't listen to them. That's a stupid opinion. I don't know. Again, it's just people finding.
Just don't listen to them as a stupid opinion. If you are unable to not, like, obsessively check every single notification, and the people on Twitter, like, saying dumb shit genuinely, like, messes with your mental, and you're not even, like, super large as a creator, you're not gonna make it, bro. You're not gonna make it. I got some bad news for you. Like, if you have it inundated every day, day in, day out, everywhere, it's gonna take a fucking toll on you. Like, there ain't no way. But I had to try and have a genuine conversation with somebody who claimed back in the day, they were just like, you responded to one of my tweets, and now your community's harassing me. And I was like, probably barely over 100 viewers at this point in time. And I was like, okay, hello. If my community is actually harassing you, can you show me proof? Can you show me what my community is saying? And he sent me 2 screenshots. One person said that his model was ugly, and the other person said that, like, I can't even remember what they said, but it was some form of, like, you have bad content. And I was like, okay, neither of these people are even following me on Twitter. I've never seen their names before. If you can show me evidence of someone in my community actually harassing you, I will do something about it. And this guy not only didn't provide any proof, but, like, the next time he got into a controversy about saying some dumb shit on his own stream, he brought up again how it's, like, the second time he's had a large creators community harass him. And I was like, buddy.
Just literally, I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Buddy, I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I came to you and was like, if it's my community, I'll do something about it. I will never give someone that benefit of the doubt again. He ruined it for everyone. Because it's like, all these people do is lie for attention.
Things to try and criticize about the other side.
There's also a thing about, like, if you're constantly doing that, if you're constantly checking and you can't, like, not check to see what people are talking about you online, where honestly, in many respects, their opinions don't fucking matter, you may have a bit of a narcissistic tendency, to be perfectly honest. There may be a tiny little god inside you that is a little bit upset about being, not not as highly praised as you think you might be. Um, just everyone has a little bit of, like, it depends on how you define it. I mean, the DSM-V defines narcissism as a personality type. I think the better definition is more of an operation in the mind, to be perfectly honest. So, under that definition, everyone has some degree of narcissistic tendency, to varying degrees, by the way. Some are very narcissistic, and some it's a little significantly more minor and managed. But in general, it's like, if you can't not pay attention to people talking about you on Twitter, if you can't mute the conversation, you might have a bit of introspection you might need to deal with.
To sort of gain some sort of, like, moral high ground, I would say the only, like, truth of this situation is that Rev's attack was just stupid in the first place and made.
So it's an attack when I quote someone publicly. I mean, right off the bat, that's just stupid. But again, you say my take is stupid, which is fine. You're allowed to think what I say is stupid. I'm allowed to think what you're saying is stupid. But I don't think that justifies bullying people harder are trying to get their sponsors removed or deplatforming them, or in this case, we know the not so subtle goal here based on this this hat
Very
and its
not so
message and
subtle goal.
what he's saying about people like me and the others included in this video.
Why are you upset about the hat? Don't you want fascists to die? It's like, I don't want anyone to die. If we can avoid killing in general, I would prefer that. But also, we know you're not defining fascism very technically either. We know you're using it in a very broad, cudulistic way. Yeah, it's not exactly subtle. Like, we know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You know that we know you know what you're doing.
Made no sense. It's not that he did something like wrong or morally incorrect, it's that he's just a fucking moron. Also, Rev likes
So if he didn't do anything wrong or morally incorrect, what was the whole point of this of this entire video? Like, Rev is dumb, fair. We all are, to be perfectly honest. But like, then what was the issue with the whole thing? He didn't do anything wrong, but he sent harassment. What? Like, what?
Is that a
the
crime?
term Twitter freaks a lot when criticizing.
That's true. Is it a crime to be a moron? Because, I mean, if it's a crime to be a moron, we can have that eugenics conversation, but I don't think it's going to go the way you want it to.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, good point. I don't know if they bring this up in the video. This guy does have an ableist comment in the video when he's talking about Nick Shirley, and he calls him mentally disabled, and he uses that as a way to dismiss Nick Shirley's research into the Minnesota fraud scandal. And then he claims that there was no fraud found, which is very much do not believe your lying eyes territory of bullshittery.
People or like groups of people who are either criticizing him or criticizing his opinions or things that he feels defensive about. I think that's pretty interesting considering some of the responses that seem to agree with his take. I definitely agree. There are some Twitter freaks out there.
Well, this is interesting because they're doing the exact thing that
I didn't even see a single slur. I didn't see a slur. I didn't see a death threat. Like, on the scale of, like, people commenting on a Twitter post, this was relatively fucking tame.
was
Yeah.
kind of the narrative that, like, I'm
really think
responsible
about that
for
either,
every
but yeah,
single
that's fair.
person on the internet who criticizes the people that I criticize or
Right.
says things to the people I criticize. That's ridiculous.
He's
It's
actually
just
the
like with
puppet
Lala.
master
Okay,
commanding
do you
all of
understand
the
how many
Twitter people?
insane and deranged and threatening and slanderous comments and quotes and separate tweets I got from people doing it in defense of her?
And this is what I said in my tweet, and people called me retarded for it. They're like, Lala didn't do anything. I was like, I know Lala didn't do anything. That was my point. Rev didn't send anyone to harass Lala, but if you're going to say this guy who wants to kill us didn't say it, he's right about one thing, that what Rev did isn't harassment, but it's like, if you're going to say that Rev commenting on Lala's post publicly is him sending people to harass her, then by that same exact logic, Lala's community harassed Rev. Everyone going after Rev sponsors is
Spicy
like
cat
Lala's
raid. What the hell
community,
is a spicy
is
cat
controlled
raid?
by Lala, and got his sponsor taken away in defense of Lala. Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, again, it's that whole victory is the principle, not any kind of like deontological or what would you call it, virtue ethics or rational egoist based reasoning. Now, I think deontology is stupid, by the way. Just pointing that out there. I think deontology doesn't make any kind of sense unless you're a Platonist, and I'm not a Platonist, and I think that there are good reasons to not be a Platonist. But yeah, like if your principle is winning, then yeah, it doesn't really matter if it turns out to be inconsistent, and in fact, it's good if harassment happens one way and not the other. Apparently,
What are we doing here? You can't have the same logic both ways. And it's like, if they had just kept it to like fucking shouting at Rev on Twitter, that'd be fine. This wouldn't even be a conversation. Rev wouldn't be watching this video. I wouldn't be watching this video. There wouldn't even be any video to watch. I am still incredibly like aggravated that this even became a situation. It should have been fucking nothing. It should have been just another fucking day on Twitter. Whatever happened to being responsible for yourself and not using an online celebrity as a shield to be a dick? I don't fucking know, man. I don't fucking know.
That's not
I mean, the left is notoriously like notoriously stereotyped as being the position of non-responsibility, of outsourcing responsibility. So, yeah, I mean, it does make sense to me. Again, the whole idea of mankind can collectively obtain utopia if everyone is on board, which means that yes, everyone has to be on board, which is why they harass people about their positions. They have to get you to say the shahada to join the ummah, right?
her audience, and that's not her intentions. Despite us disagreeing, I'm not going to attribute that to her. It's that simple.
Yeah.
This is a gigantic
And you shouldn't, because it would be
reach.
ridiculous.
It's a desperate reach. And on top of that, we hear this Twitter freak language. Everyone knows it's a phrase for people who harass others over fictional content, or they try to deplatform people for having different opinions. It is not that deep. Okay? I will appreciate that this person didn't take the low.
And like they always say, it's like, oh, it's consequences. It's the same thing as Lala getting backlash. And it's like, no, Rev getting backlash would be the same thing as Lala getting backlash. No one went after Lala's sponsors. No one tried to get her dropped from anything financial. No one did that.
Guess what? Consequences will never be the same.
route we see all the
That is such a fucking. Oh my god, I remember that video.
time where people say, oh, when Rev says Twitter freak, he means minorities or trans people or
They
stuff
tried
like
that
that,
with
which was
Silverveil when she
never
coined the term.
at all any sort of an intention of this phrase that was developed by someone other than myself. That was Silverveil, not me, which, by the way, was developed referring to people harassing others for playing Hogwarts Legacy.
Yep.
Okay?
I am still bitter about what happened to Pikami. I will never like let people live down the thing that happened with Pikami. To be perfectly honest, like that was fucking ridiculous. Granted, I'm glad she's back, not under a different name, but oh my god, I quite enjoyed Project Bombs, and Pikami was part of the thing that helped me keep up with Project Bombs because she actually spoke both English and Japanese, and I'm pretty sure what happened to Pikami hurt everyone involved in there. I'm pretty sure Gyari-san was like, "Holy shit, how do I even deal with this? I have no idea about what's going on with the freaks in the Americas," which might explain why they haven't exactly tried to branch out into the American audience. Because if that was your experience with the American audience, why the fuck would you want to court the Americans, right? Uh, I'm pretty sure it hurt Tomoshika. They seemed like they were genuinely good friends, to be perfectly honest. Uh, so it just seems like a complete shit situation for everyone involved. And uh, oh my, oh man, yeah. I'm still fucking hung up about that.
And they had to try and turn it into, oh, they're talking about minorities and trans people, because otherwise they would have no fucking defense for all the harassment that Silverveil faced at the time.
The main
They're definitely whittling away on the whole oppressor oppressed class dichotomy thing. A lot more people are far less willing to give any kind of special treatment for oppressed classes, allegedly oppressed classes, because they're not really oppressed. And for good reason, because the moral capital of these groups has been spent by bad actors in those particular communities. Um, so hopefully, over time, as that capital is spent, we will get back to the good old '90s style, where internet, where in '90s and early 2000s style internet, where we can just say whatever the fuck we want and then get on with our day.
takeaway for me from just like the starting point of this entire series of events is that Rev is not like a very serious person.
Serious.
But
Why is
you
that a
are?
problem? Like, what?
What the fuck does that come from? I have a desire to know where that comes from. What the fuck did I just watch?
Once again, stop, like, take your nose out of your own asshole for, like, 1 fucking second, dude. What? Who cares?
You're the serious person? Like, look, man, we're all rolling around in the mud, okay? We're not very serious
Yeah.
people, but you cannot take the moral high ground and say, like, I'm Mr. Serious, while wearing a kill fascists hat, while sitting with this arcade background and just spurging out over absolutely nothing without making a singular, real reason I deserve anything that happened with the advance.
Blinkington, thank you for the sex. How dare you use my own logic against me? It's wild. It's wild.
This is not that far off from like what the left. This always frustrates me when the left does this, because the left has no problem doing this, of like taking what you believe, and I pointed this out in the previous video again. Oh, taking what you believe and trying to turn it against you to beat you with your own beliefs. And they do this always by reframing what the core the core text that you hold close, or the core principles, and reframing them to their advantage. Like the whole thing with Tomoe, the active duty military woman who's a VTuber, and that fucking Canadian rat who wanted her to, talk about politics when she was entirely just doing, comfy streaming, so she shouldn't be doing politics. And she talked about, and that rat talked about her oath, and it's like, yeah, oh, he's doing the spell that they always do on the Christians, where they quote the Bible out of context to make you look bad and to try to make you think that you're doing the wrong thing, and to try to coerce you into compliance using your own beliefs. And like again, that was exactly the same thing going, because when you go join the military, you do take an oath and you do have a creed, the soldier's creed, which I did actually. If you want to know what the soldier's creed is, I actually read it out, at the in that video. But so they will use your creeds against you. So you be very careful when talking about these people when they try to throw your beliefs back at you, because they're not doing it out of a care for you. Live more consistently with what you believe. I mean, I do that, like not to the manipulation part, but like I actually want people to live by their beliefs. So I will talk to them about it, and I will sometimes disagree about what their beliefs mean, but I'll always do so in the sense of like, look, man, if this is what you really believe, like, let me help, let me understand you. So I actually try to understand what people actually believe, but you know, I'm not trying to manipulate people when I do that. I actually genuinely care that people are living up to their values. So. But these people never do. It's always a tool with which to bludgeon and corral you.
Situation.
On the one hand, he says that like criticizing people isn't harassing anybody, and then he turns around right away and accuses other people of harassing him for.
Do you not understand the difference between what he said and what this person said? What this person said goes far and beyond anything that was even in Lala's comments, which was called harassment. And it's somebody in his company, somebody partnered with his company, trying to throw their weight around to get him dropped from the company. Like, what are we doing here?
To be perfectly honest, if I was the head of Advanced GG and that had happened, I would never be in that position, by the way. But like, if I was in that particular position, I actually would have dropped Vex and I would have kept Rev, because Vex doing that shows that she is a volatile creator who is not able to work alongside other creators and who is a potential liability. I'd have fucking dropped her, to be perfectly honest.
Basically just publicly criticizing him?
It's not just basically publicly criticizing. I already showed this, but you guys understand. Trying to get someone deplatformed, attacking someone else who is in the same company as you and joining in a brigade, trying to get someone removed from that same
And I think he does understand this, right? I think that this disingenuous thing on the screen does in fact understand that. Because look, once again, look at his description. He does want to see these people financially ruined. He does want to see people like Rev and I financially ruined and run off the internet. He probably wants us dead, based on the hat.
I mean, I would agree with that. I think that is what they want.
But he has to say the nice and flowery things, and he has to say the lies that are parroted by everyone else to make us look like bad people. Because otherwise, if they're just out there screaming, kill them, they'll look crazy.
Company is not just simple harassment. That person provided.
They won't just look crazy, it'll expose how evil they actually are. Wanting people to die is actually evil.
Literally zero reason that I did anything wrong. All they said was F me, F my wife, whatever. And that anyone who stands with them is a bootlicker and someone that is bad.
I guess if you publicly criticize somebody like more than once, does that then become harassment based?
That's another way that you could tell that this is a disingenuous question. That the way that particular question is framed and comes out the mouth, it's like, oh, you're not actually taking the question seriously. Your own question is itself taking the piss out of the people that you're posing the question to. It's completely rhetorical as a reduction to absurdity of the entire situation.
On his standards,
It
I don't
could.
really understand that. He's a grifter. He's a drama profiteer who
Aren't you profiteering from
How am I a
drama right
grifter?
now?
I mean, you want to say drama profiteer. You're literally trying to profit off of drama right now. So that's you too. But how am I a grifter? I'll wait.
Again, you're taking the grifter language in the wrong context. There's again that esoteric exoteric dynamic. When he says grifter, he means fascist, and when he says fascist, he means enemy who needs to be destroyed and whose reputation needs to be destroyed. These don't actually mean anything objective in the ways that you would use it. When he says grifter, he's accusing you of being a liar so that he can be justified in destroying your reputation. When he calls you a fascist or a right winger, he is declaring that you are a member of an evil organization, an evil cult, and that you should be destroyed for your malevolence. But he doesn't really care if these are true because the purpose is not to mark an objective reality outside of his worldview, but rather to frame the external world within his worldview, which uses and discards people for the historical process.
How am I faking my opinions? I've been consistent for so many years. The only thing that really happened is I've become more honest because
Tard didn't know the Silverveil Twitter freaks lore? Tourist? I mean, obviously a tourist.
all this nonsense I've talked about for years has bled into hobbies I actually care about. It makes it more frontward facing, especially when it comes to political stuff being injected into my hobbies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a demoralization campaign. They don't want you to be able to escape so you can't decompress. That way, you're always stressed out. And then that means that, again, the whole purpose of that is to immiserate you because they hate you. Like, that is the purpose. They're not exactly subtle about it. They believe you to be an oppositional class that can never be harmonized with their class, and so you must be destroyed. The entire process of these the entire dialectical process is sublation, the abrogation through transcendence. But abrogation means the deletion of what comes before.
Like many
What
other
Rev said, if creators are being attacked left and right, then what's the point of holding it back? That's pretty much the point that everyone is coming to, right? And this is why the I don't want politics in my hobby doesn't work. Because the people who say I don't want politics will eventually be completely overrun by the people demanding their politics. And it's like, I want some things to stay apolitical. It's why I don't bring up politics in collabs. It's why I tell you guys to not bring politics into non-political streamers' chats. There are places that it does not belong, right? But the leftist freaks demand capitulation to their ideology. They cannot let you just grill. They must watch you grill in the way that they think is acceptable, and only that way.
others. It's made people become more quote-unquote
It's again the old Mussolini quote. It's like all within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. Like that is the core idea of actual idealism. The idea that the collective of mankind is actually God, and that it is the collective of all human consciousness that generates external reality as we perceive it. Um, and yeah, it's again another part of the speculative idea is that like everything is instrumental to the process of history. Everything is sexist, everything is racist, and you have to call it all out, to quote Anita Sarkeesian. And if that sounds suspiciously like the Benito Mussolini quote that I gave, it's because the essential idea behind the two is identical. It's just framed in a different ideological lens. One is classical fascism, the other one is feminism. But again, they're both historical process philosophies where man is used, discarded, and eventually a transcendent, enlightened man at the end of history is what comes about through the instrumentality of man in time. But yeah, again, nothing outside with all is within the state, nothing outside the state, and nothing against the state. Everything has to be. Everything is political. If there's anything that isn't political, it must be made political because, again, the Marxist concept, and this is where this comes from, because Giovanni Gentile himself, the founder of fascism, in his earlier days, was a Marxist, just like Hitler in his early days was a Marxist. They became these other philosophies because, and even Rudolf Young, the founder of National Socialism, was himself in his younger days a Marxist. They just happened to be discontented with Marxism and branched off to do their own thing. Fuck, where was I? This is much later than I usually am for a stream. Shit. Everything within the state. Oh yeah. So the reason that this is such a common thing is that, again, these people stem from Marxism, and Marx himself was taught that there was a requirement for the ruthless criticism of all that exists. Let's see if I can find the exact quote. I might have actually found it. Thank you, Marxist.org. Okay. But if constructing the future and settling everything for all times are not our affair, it is all the more clear what we have to accomplish at present. I am referring to ruthless criticism of all that exists. Ruthless in both the sense of not being afraid of the results it arrives at, and in the sense of being just as little afraid of conflict with powers that be. So, everything that exists, including like the mode of cultural production, which is, by the way, why Gramsci was actually kind of a genius when it came to the Marxist project of he sees not just the modes of economic production, but the means of cultural production. You know, sees control of the comics, sees control of the video games, sees control of the cinema, sees control of literature, sees control of the radio broadcasts, sees control of like the art communities. That's why the leftist infiltration was such a big problem. That is a massive source of soft power that is way, way more powerful than people give him credit for. Because human beings don't learn, well, we don't think of the world in purely discursive terms. This is the problem that the hardcore rationalists sometimes bump up against. We learn through narrative, through experience. So, like, again, as I pointed out in the previous video, when people when people learn from fiction, that's exactly how people have historically learned. We tell morality stories to help us process right and wrong in real, like, discernible examples, to give us an actual tactile understanding of what it means to be good. And if some group that happens to have a very wildly different view of good happens to have control of all your morality tale, production, your morals and ethics are going to be wildly skewed in a very short amount of time.
Political because it's inescapable. It becomes something that is intrinsically tied to hobbies it was never meant to be.
And anyone trying to tell you, oh, keep VTubing completely apolitical. We can't have people that Kirsha has ruined VTubing. It's all her fault. Those are people who are trying to pretend to be apolitical. They're trying to pretend to be in the middle and not caring. They're actually a leftist who wants the infiltration to happen. No matter what they say, no matter what argument they make, every kind of action that they do allows the infiltration to take over everything. Just like comics, just like movies, just like regular TV shows.
Okay. Oh my god. Okay, fair enough. He's just gonna say the same thing I did.
Just like every other form of entertainment, just like video games. It is inescapable. And if you actually want to gatekeep VTubing, I've been tanking shit for quite a while. And I've said that for quite a while. I cannot be a lightning rod forever. Eventually, you will have to deal with it at home. You gotta fight for your right to party. You gotta fight. You gotta fight instead of rolling the fuck over and taking it. If you want to keep apolitical spaces, if you don't want to see something that you love completely ruined like every other facet of entertainment, you have to make sure that capitulations aren't happening. And as we can see from the other day, that's clearly not happening. The capitulations are still going on.
First place.
plays dumb and innocent in the face of any criticism for his awful opinions and his awful behavior. And he shouts, woke and Twitter.
What is my awful behavior, by the way?
Existing.
Can someone help me? What
How
is
dare
the
you
awful
breathe?
behavior? They have no citation.
Freak when he criticizes things that he doesn't like. And that's about it. For the record, there are a lot of people on Twitter who have some really stupid opinions, but he doesn't hate those people. He loves those people. They're his content. They're also his audience. He's a valueless husk.
I'm a valueless husk. Now, I'm glad you included the screenshot, so you're using these videos as examples of me being a valueless husk. When, for example, the only videos you actually watch to completion, or the only one, is where I'm talking briefly
That is funny.
about the advanced situation and let my
I will step into, and I hate to do this, but to defend this, super cunt right here. But the issue with that particular statement is YouTube, for some reason, like, has an issue with recording where exactly you are in a video. Like, I have in my library videos that I have completed that say I have not even started it. And I have videos that I have not started say that I have either completed or half completed. And I'm like, where the fuck did this even happen? I didn't watch this video. So like, it is at least possible he could have watched other channels. Do I think that's the case? No, but just seeing that it's not complete or that it is complete on a YouTube screen cap doesn't necessarily say anything, because again, I've had that exact problem where it's like, I didn't watch this video. Why does it say I watched it? Or it's like, I watched this video. Why does it say it's incomplete or that I haven't even started it? So, again, devil do, right?
audience know what's going on because they were genuinely curious as to what's going on because they were left in the dark. Then you give this video about 1 minute of a watch, and then this one about 1 minute of a watch. And now you've completely settled your opinion on me. Interesting. Now, of course,
Women on Reddit are leaving their husbands for watching the... Oh my god! He made a video! He made a video on that fucking post that I found on Reddit. I need to watch that! I didn't know Rev made a fucking video on that. That's funny. That's funny. Oh yeah, that was funny. I still don't know whose fucking woman that was, man. Whose woman's was that? I want to know the end.
I have a suspicion that that was a fake Reddit story, as many Reddit stories are. But that also just might be me coping and being like, please let this be a fake story, because I really don't want it to be a real story. That would be fucking. Please be fake. Don't be real.
Of that story. I want to know what happened to that honorable chatter, man.
of course I would go to your account, but I see you're playing a lot of World of Warcraft, and you know what? I go back and say, oh, you're playing Classic WoW? I understand why you're so ornery and so angry. I get it. I understand.
Who still posts Gamergate content in 2026. Honestly, he should be shamed and bullied off of every platform, and he should lose all business deals that he manages to get his hands on.
Literally saying Rev should be harassed. Just pointing that out. Again, it's bad when Rev, encourages harassment, which he didn't, by the way. But I can encourage harassment because I'm the good guy and Rev is the bad guy. So Rev's not the same kind of person I am. He's not really human in the same way,
He's a
For why? Just because you don't like him? Again, that's crazy. If I were to come out and say someone should lose all of their business deals, I would be just resoundingly attacked constantly, right? I had to issue a cease and desist for someone who fucking libeled me, and I still get blamed for harassing them because these mentally ill individuals can only lie about shit. And it's like, why should we all have to walk on eggshells? Why do we have to be careful of what we say when all of you can just say, yeah, they should lose their finances. They should be broke and desperate. They should be desperate. They should be run off the internet. They should be fucking killed. Why do we have to be the ones walking on eggshells and worrying about you freaks trying to do damage to us? And if any time we defend ourselves, you're just like, yeah, you should die. And nothing happens. Nothing happens to these people who are like, yeah, they should lose everything. I want to see that happen, and I think it's funny. Do they not even realize that they are, yeah, destitute. They are the only ones who don't have consequences here. Every time.
Piece of shit.
No, they don't understand that because again, their entire worldview is again just a secularized. Well, it's not really secularized. It's just a pseudo-secularized Gnosticism. You have to remember they believe in a series of what are apparently physical but don't make any physical sense system of self-replicating assets, of systems of oppression that are interlocking, by the way. So these self-replicating assets are also interlocking, and then justifying ideologies. And together, these things are the generative force behind a hyper reality. So they believe that capitalism, so that'd be in the Marxian sense, patriarchy in the feminist sense, um, you see, white supremacy in the critical race theory sense, uh, healthism, real word by the way, in the fat positivity sense. All these interlocking, these are all interlocking modes of oppression, and that you know they associate these again because the whole Marxist input with the Judeo-Christian worldview. So if you support the traditional values, if you support the system as it is, which they believe to be set up by a false archonic structure, a false archonic, say, let's see, system. No, I call it archonic because it is functionally archonic. Then you are, in a sense, a what would you call it? You are in a metaphysical sense, a Satanist. And I use that not as hyperbole because, again, you have to remember how these things function in the worldview, even if they don't say it with these terms. That the god of the Jew is money. So that thing, money, is the thing that actually generates the hyper reality that estranges man from himself, the hyper reality that we call capitalism. Money is the self-replicating asset and the god of that particular, the what would you call it? The structure of system of oppression. The same thing happens with patriarchy. Masculinity is the self-replicating asset, and what ends up happening is that this self-replicating asset ends up creating a system of oppression, what we call patriarchy, and the two are inseparable from each other. So you have God as source of wealth and God as source of masculine authority, and then again you go over to God. And this is why they call Christianity a white religion, by the way, even though it is an Asian religion. You have the system of oppression that is called white supremacy, even though it's not even how this particular world, this particular country functions. But so whiteness is the self-replicating asset. That's why, for example, a minority can be said to be acting white. It's not the racial connotation per se, but the cultural whiteness per se that is the self-replicating asset that causes people to be favored or disfavored. And that's the part. All of these invisible systems, they don't just function as a description of reality. They are a thing in and of themselves, something that can actually be dismantled. You couldn't, for example, dismantle the speed of light, because the speed of light is just a description of how light behaves in a given geodesic, right? So, it's a description how light actually behaves in space. You can't dismantle that. You can't dismantle Ohm's law. You can't dismantle the law of gravity. These are just descriptions of how things behave. They are not things in and of themselves. In order for things like capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy and healthism to be dismantled, they actually have to be things in and of themselves that have the ability to be created and then destroyed, like any other thing in reality. Um, and that is that property that I mentioned a moment ago. If you appease them, if you appease them, they favor you, they benefit you. But if you disappear, but if you, I'm going to use the word insult because that means like go against, literally. So if you go against them, they will disfavor you. So they act in a very real sense like, again, the archons of Gnosticism. They can be approached for favor, and they can be opposed and results in the disfavor in the hyper reality, the false reality. So they act like spiritual entities because these are just again the systematization of spiritual entities from Gnosticism as it was adapted into a secular system. These are religious concepts, and again, if you stand in support of these allegedly systems of oppression, you are functionally in this worldview worshiping the demons that create the false reality. This is why they have such an animosity towards the Judeo-Christian worldview, because the Judeo-Christian worldview sees the creator of what they see to be a false reality as as the true God, whereas they see that creator as a demon. Again, they won't use this religious language, but this is the functional result of Marxism drawing from Gnosticism. So yes, people like this, they won't say it, and if you explain, if you can coach this out of some of these people, if they're out of some of these people. But yes, Rev and Kirsha are functionally demon worshippers in this particular, according to this particular worldview, because they stand in favor of the systems that we believe, or that they believe to be like oppressive, like common sense. Then they are standing in the way of liberation from these systems of oppression. So there's the animosity right there. It is no different than the animosity towards Satanism from Christianity, except it's a little bit more severe from the Gnostics, to be perfectly honest. Because the Gnostics see the world as we see it. The world is, the world as is, which we see to be good, they see to be evil.
Fuck it.
Okay, well that's really good criticism. We've received basically none this entire time. It's crazy. Like I said earlier, the entire reason people were justifying my sponsorship being removed was due to the fact they believed that I was somehow leading a harassment campaign against people like Lala, and that I was trying to actively send my followers to bully them. And you have a person like this justifying the results that happened to me while saying I should be bullied without ever presenting a single reason or piece of proof that I ever directed harassment or bullying towards anyone. The irony is absolutely palpable, ladies and gentlemen. And of course,
I'm tired of the irony being palpable. I want things to finally be fair. Unfortunately, life isn't fair. It's not. It's not.
Rest of this video, we're almost...
I mean, yeah, life isn't fair, but if you start treating these people fairly, they will cry about oppression, and they'll lean back on the fact that, they'll lean back on the whole idea that they're oppressed if you start treating them fairly. Yeah, and that does, for some reason, give the common man sympathy for them for crying about being oppressed when they're just, again, suffering the consequences. They're just reaping what they sow.
Only 6 minutes in, ladies and gentlemen. They talk about Leaflet, they talk about Kirsha, and I guess they talk about Powder as well. I think every person involved will make their own video or reaction to this at some point. It was actually Leaflet and her reaction that helped me discover this
It was Rev and his reaction that helped me discover the pipeline is real.
It was Kirsha that had me discover, right? No, I saw all three of those appear at the same time in my feed. But as that one chatter who came in earlier said, who the hell is even making the video? There's 4 cartoons on the screen. Yeah, fair enough.
Black hole of a video, and it turns out too, you go to this person's account, and it seems like they made a follow-up. I ain't clicking on that. What do words mean? I don't know, man. You need to settle down.
I will definitely be watching that particular video, the Leaflet reaction, but I think that was released today, so I'm not going to watch it, obviously, today. First of all, I have to get to sleep at some point. But second of all, I don't like reacting to videos on the day that they come out.
It's democracy versus motherfucking fascism. I would genuinely like to see these people have to live in like a fascist simulation, just so that they know what it actually looks like. Cause like if we were,
it wouldn't change their mind, to be perfectly honest, because the issue isn't, again, an issue of definition. The issue is, again, like an issue of like how language is to be used. You have a fundamentally different understanding of how language is. Again, the free written, the point of like language to these to demons exists only as a means to deceive humans. Language is not a tool of communication for the Marxian project. It is a means of communication and obfuscation. The obfuscation is the reason why there is the esoteric exoteric distinction. If you are not initiated into the secret knowledge of the critical consciousness, then you are not meant to understand what is being said by the people who speak with critical consciousness. That is by design. It is a means by which you can always control the people in your particular in your particular movement, because there is an inbuilt authority about and hierarchy in there, even though it's all allegedly against hierarchy.
Actually living under a fascist government, we wouldn't get comfy riot streams where we get to watch retards blow on whistles in Minneapolis. Instead, we would know that about 100,000 of those protesters got murdered in broad daylight, and if any of us talked about it, our doors would be kicked in and we would also be spirited away. So, I have no idea what fantasy these people are living in.
Just wanting to be loved is important and human. We all just want to be loved, and the big
Why does the beginning of this sound like a propaganda video?
question is when you are not loved and a Nazi is across the street going, yoo-hoo.
Again, they don't call you a Nazi because they think you are a Nazi. They call you a Nazi to justify when you die.
Do you go back to being not loved or walk across the street? That is what this civil war, and I promise you that's what's brewing, is going to be all about. And it's fucking over. The discourse is over. We have sat, we have talked, we have argued, we have pondered. The discourse is over. The war has begun. You're not...
Again, when you say the discourse is over, and the discourse is very obviously not over, obviously there is more you could talk about. You do not have to go to civil war. They go to civil war because in this particular case they want civil war. You got to remember, the left actually valorizes revolution. Violence is sacramental in a sense to the left. The violent overthrow of one regime for another is itself an act of socio-spiritual rebirth in these worldviews. Consider it like a nationwide baptism of blood.
You're not talking to Nazis anymore. You're not talking to people that want to entertain the notion of being a Nazi anymore. They're fucking Nazis. It's the bedrock of humanity. Gotcha, bitch.
That is a very... Hold on. That's fucking ridiculous.
Talking to Nazis anymore.
So you're not talking to Nazis?
You're not talking to people that want to entertain the notion of being a Nazi anymore.
You're not talking to people who want to be Nazis
anymore. They're fucking Nazis.
They're not. So they're not Nazis. They don't want to be Nazis. They're Nazis. Whoever framed this as a fucking idiot.
It's the bedrock of humanity. Gotcha.
The foundation stone of mankind is Nazism. Well, that what a bleak outlook on human life.
Bitch.
What kind of a retard says they're Nazis? It's the bedrock of humanity. What kind of like alarmist simulation are you living in where you think Nazis are a bedrock of anything? I have no idea what this man is attempting to say, because like, yeah, the conversations are over, and it's not because of the people you call Nazis. It's because of average, regular conservatives trying to have conversations and make breakthroughs, getting fucking murdered for it. Wait, what? Bedrock means foundation? Holy retardation? Yeah, like, what is he trying to say?
I'm not convinced that the conversation is over, just because martyrdom is especially if you're familiar with the Christian tradition, martyrdom is kind of a thing in the Christian tradition. That's not to say that people dying is a good thing. It's obviously not. But I don't imagine, I do not imagine, for example, Charlie Kirk would be all that happy with his death being used to justify the end of the dialogue. Again, because he comes from a tradition where martyrdom is seen as an honor. But that's just my personal assessment for that. I do think that we still do have an opportunity to at least save more people, even if there is a civil war coming, which I hope there's not. I hope that the Beanie Man can be proven wrong. We are in a cold civil war. I don't want it to become a hot civil war. That is my main concern, is like if we can keep it cold and then we can fight this like civil war in a cold civil war, it is much more preferable than fighting it in a hot civil war, to be perfectly honest. And yeah. I that's all I gotta say with that. Is like,
please check the description before I continue. The audio is Dan Harmon, creator.
Hold on. What did that say? So I made anti-fascist propaganda. Again, this guy admits to like even if it's facetiously. Like first of all, anti-fascist doesn't mean anything. It just ties to Antifa, which is just a modern neo-fascism pretending to be against fascism when in fact they share a striking similarity to classical fascism. But so I made anti-fascist propaganda. Again, he is admitting to being a liar because propaganda is by definition the deceptive use of information. Just like it's like, oh yeah, takia in kitman in Islam. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't technically lie; it was a half truth, or I technically told you the truth, but I framed it in such a way that would cause you to come to unreasonable, to my conclusions. It's still deceptive. If you omit information that's relevant, that's a lie by omission. Like if you tell a half truth to forward a cause, that's still a lie. You know, if you, oh my god, and yeah, we saw this earlier with like the video he had that they just commented on, where he left out information on purpose. Like this man is a liar. He admits to being a liar.
And creator of Rick and Morty and
That's not
Community.
surprising. I can't stand Rick and Morty. Like it was funny at first, but very quickly, I very quickly stopped watching because I don't find nihilism I don't find nihilism funny. And it's like, oh yeah, the smartest man in the world. And it's like all miserable all the time. It's like because he's the smartest man in the world. It's like, why the fuck would I want to watch this? What is the draw here? It's not a particularly clever show, but like I do not understand what the draw for this particular show is. But anyway, so, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me that the creator of Rick and Morty is a bit of a retard.
Ranting about this topic back in 2017 hits hard today, in my opinion. Music is eulogy from the Andor S1 soundtrack from Marva's eulogy speech. My favorite.
So let's let this sink in. This speech that we're listening to is from 2017. Yeah, again, people have been calling for the death of non-Marxists for quite a while, and they've been getting away with it. Just gonna put that out there. They don't care if you're actually a Nazi. They'll kill you if you're not on the same if you oppose them. That's all this is saying.
Favorite monologue of that whole show. Well, Dan Harmon's been crazy for years. But yeah, I guess we're just not smart enough to understand what Dan Harmon's trying to say, you know?
It is so low that the worst people in the world find it.
Even about cost civilian lives? Yeah, who gives a shit?
And that's where they rally.
It's some...
I love clips that have no context. What is he talking about? Why is he saying that costs civilian lives? What is even going on in that clip?
Amazing patriot out there in San Francisco wants to really be a midterm hero. Someone should go and bail this guy out.
And it's so low. We have gotten so bad that a third of our country has gotten there. 29% of the people are fucking Nazis.
If 29% of the people are Nazis, you are not winning that particular less than almost in any given civil war, less than 10% of the population is actually involved in the fighting. If 29% are going to be involved in this conflict, you are absolutely going to get steamrolled and things are going to get so much worse. There is no way. Well, I mean, they believe it because they believe, again, history is on their side because history is, because the state, or in this case, the people, quote TM, are the agent of God in the world, and they act in God's stead in history. So it's like, yeah, they believe they'll win no matter what the circumstances are, to be perfectly honest. Which is why they get so offended when the Republicans push back and actually mean it. Because how dare you push back? You're supposed to endlessly capitulate like you've always done. Which is really funny because in his video, he actually complains that the left always capitulates when the right is always, when the Republicans are always complaining that the Republicans always capitulate. But yeah, if there were actually 29% of the country was Nazis, we would be already taken over because the majority of people would, let's be fair, not fight in that particular conflict. It doesn't matter who it is. a majority of the people never fight. When the communists took over in Russia, the majority of people didn't stand up and fight against the communists. When the Nazis took over, the majority of people didn't, stand up against the Nazis. When the fascists took over, the majority of people didn't stand up to oppose the fascists. Everyone, for the most part, was like, if I keep my head down, I won't die. That is the cold, hard fact about that. The majority of people, if the bad guys do take over, are going to put their head down and say, if I don't make a fuss, I get to live. Which means that, because to be perfectly honest, if the majority of the people who didn't agree with it actually stood up and fought, they probably, the good guys actually would win. But the majority of people are not going to involve themselves no matter what the situation entails. So, it's a bit of a pessimistic view in my, you might say, but it's not the majority that is the issue. It's, the it's how much you can get the minorities, because it's always going to be the minorities driving, because it's the minorities who are actually going to be the ones who are engaged in the fighting. Like, it's going to never be more than a couple percent in any given side of these conflicts that actually get involved if a civil war breaks out. That's why I say it's a minority of the population. But anyway, so long story short,
let's face it, that's a minority. We can beat them. We have to say, I'm not a Nazi, though.
Yeah, I've been saying I'm not a Nazi, though, and all of the good that's done me, right?
Birds of the country just don't.
Yeah, again, like, Kirsche has the entire Cure Mom files up for everyone to watch, and it actually pretty solidly shows she's not a Nazi, but they don't care because it was never about truth. It was always about how they can abuse the rhetoric, sophistry, and confidence to destroy the lives of people they do not like. It's always been an envy and resentment-based, movement. It's always been what it is.
Want to be political. It's not politics to say you're not a Nazi. It's like taking a shit. You just do it. You die if you don't shit, and you.
Hold on a second.
You just do it. You die if you don't.
These are the smug assholes that want you to believe that they're right about everything. And he's unironically saying in the middle of a rant about Nazis, you die if you don't shit. Come on, bro.
Shit.
I think you're missing the point here, Kirsche. I think this is an active threat, to be perfectly honest. I think this is a confession of, when we get power, and we actually get uncontested power, if you do not say the magic words, you will die. I think that's what that is actually saying. So I'm reading this very differently than you are. But yeah, I think this is when we get power, we will demand explicit fidelity to us and against our enemies, and you will say the same things about our enemies we say, and if you do not, you will be labeled as the enemy, because only Nazis will say that they're not Nazis, or only Nazis will disagree on what we say a Nazi is, and then we will destroy you. And in fact, if they take absolute power, it honestly would probably be kill you.
And you die if you don't say you're not a Nazi!
Again, and you die if you don't say you're not a Nazi. And then what does this individual put on there? Well, it's Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. That's not exactly subtle. We can see exactly what it is you're saying here.
Fascism is a...
No, you still die if you say you're not a Nazi, because once again, the people calling you a Nazi aren't doing it because they genuinely think you are one. They do it because you're an acceptable target to now financially ruin, to deplatform, and to kill. It doesn't matter how many times I say I'm not a Nazi, I'm not a white supremacist, I don't speak about those things, I don't do anything with those things. It doesn't matter how many times it's said, they will continue to repeat the lies. Even if you issue correction after correction about the things that they lie about, they will continue to do it. Because they want you dead. That is it, period. End of story. They turned me into a Nazi party!
Fucking cancer! It will eat your country unless your country kills it.
You know what's also a fucking cancer? Communism. Communism is a fucking cancer. And it's gonna fuck up your life unless your country kills it.
In recognizing a communist, physical appearance counts for nothing. If he openly declares himself to be a communist, we take his word for it.
I do think that we should treat communists the same way we treat Nazis, to be perfectly honest. Like, I do think we should openly disdain people who support murderous ideologies. That's just me. If we're gonna openly disdain the Nazis for, rightly for murdering millions of Jews and Roma and other groups, the disabled, political dissidents, all that stuff. Yeah, I think it's entirely fair to then hold the same degree of contempt for Marxists. How those Ukrainians doing, right? Oh yeah, so it's always interesting. It always moves from the Holodomor didn't happen to, but the Holodomor was good actually. Yeah, again, Nazis and Marxists, they're just sister religions, and they're both depraved and evil religions, to be perfectly honest.
What happens when you get cancer? Nothing good. Nothing. There is no way out of it. You've got cancer. You have fascism. You are going to suffer. You are going to fight. You are going to feel pain. You are not getting out of this.
We're going to be doing something.
This is crazy to me. Like we have so many instances of what an actual fascist government does to people. You would not be allowed outside to protest if we had a fascist government. You would not be allowed to criticize the government if we had a fascist government. You wouldn't be out there blowing your little rape whistles and waving signs calling Trump a Nazi if we had a fascist government. You would be dead, and if any of us talked about it on any of our streams, we would be dead too. It is wild what these people think they're living in. Dan Harmon's fucking crazy. This femboy's fucking crazy.
With Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
We have fascism. It is happening.
Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the results of the 2020 election.
Ooh, that did not age well, did it?
Well, I mean, this guy also said that there was no evidence of fraud in Minnesota, so I'm not entirely sure I'm not entirely sure even if you gave him evidence of the election fraud that he would actually consider it instead of calling it a right-wing conspiracy. Which is funny because the right-wing conspirators actually apparently recently got pretty fucking severe vindication from the Epstein leaks. Just saying. So some of those conspiracies turned out to be like disturbingly accurate, it seems.
And to prevent the lawful transfer of power.
We will stop the steal.
We're fucking dead.
I don't know how this femboy put that shit in here because it just shows that he has no idea what's going on.
He put that in there because, like, again, it's not meant for you, Kirsha. It's not meant for me. It's meant for the people who don't know any better, the people who are disconnected and are easily manipulable because they don't know any of this stuff. They are easy to be manipulated through emotional, through their emotions, not through their, understanding of it, because they don't have any understanding of this. It's to motivate the useful idiots. That's literally the purpose of this.
The amount of, investigations and the whoopsies, we found that we had hundreds of thousands of, erroneous ballots in in this year and in 2025. It's like, that's interesting. I'd say many such cases.
Maybe, or maybe they're dead. That's about it. It's not a...
I also think it's really disingenuous to use, images of the fucking, I think it's, Normandy or whatever. I think it's disingenuous to use this because you have actual World War II soldiers who have gone on TV and said, this isn't what I fought for. This isn't right. You have Lamau Normandy. Bro, not a D-Day fighter. Get the shit out of here. It's very insulting to use the World War II footage. Yeah, exactly. It's incredibly fucking insulting. It is incredibly disingenuous. If any of these soldiers, like that one on British television, spoke up about what was happening, they would be called Nazis. And they were the ones fighting the actual Nazis. It's not about the truth. It's about him attempting to rile the masses into a rebellion. Oh, absolutely.
Yep. So to prove Kirsch's point, I actually have these parts loaded because I was told that this was going to actually pop up. So yeah, I got some examples here for that.
I don't know. I've lived a good life. I mean, I've had a lot of happiness, smiling, telling everybody that everything was beautiful every day. If I went into my church and didn't say everything was beautiful, they'd think I was sick. And I'm not that way. I mean, I sincerely believe in this old world that everything is beautiful. I mean, if I wake up in the morning and see these plants out here and all those flowers that are in there and the green grass on the ground, that's beautiful. And people don't realize what they have. They bitch about it. And then nowadays, I am so upset that the things we did and the things we fought for and the boys that died for it, it's all gone down the drain. Our country's gone to hell in a handbasket. We haven't got the country we had when I was raised. Not at all. Nobody will have the fun I had. Nobody will have the opportunity I had. It's just not the same. That's not what our boys, that's not what they died for. It's just not it. Darling, I'm so sorry. I'll be all right. Just takes me time to get over it. Why me? See, sitting here like this, see, all this going on.
It's crazy.
Listen, it's just, Emily, it's just not the same. That isn't what we fought for. Oh well, I should be worried about it, I guess. I'm 100 years old, they say.
That one will be
I'm
my
not,
fight.
I worry about it. Yes, I worry.
That will be my fight. Yeah. For sure.
Well, okay, you just remember everything's beautiful, and live every day to the fullest. Just enjoy everything you possibly can.
This next clip I'm about to show you, it's going to tell you.
Let's see, where is it? Here it is.
On Good Morning Britain and said something that everyone, including Americans, really need to hear.
What does Remembrance Sunday mean for you? What is your message?
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye those rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now. And what we fought for was our freedom. We find that even now it's darn sight worse than what it was when I fought for it.
And that's not bitterness talking.
Yeah, I don't really care for this guy's commentary. Like, what he says isn't exactly incorrect, but yeah, I just needed those particular snippets. No, the two men who fought against the Nazis, and how did the politicians of their countries, treat their sacrifice, the sacrifice of their brothers, the things they had to do and see? Well, they sold out their people. They sold out their people to ideologies that hate their people. Yeah, let that sink in. It really wasn't worth it. Not because the Nazis and the Marxists were bad guys, or because they were, but rather because, well, it turns out their own countries would sell out their children.
Or maybe they're
This
dead.
This is a very
That's
good
about
example
it.
of propaganda.
It's not a continuum. There's no gray area. It's not a fad. Fascism doesn't pop up.
There's no gray area. There's no continuum. It is black and white. Fiction and Rick and Morty, that can be complicated. That can be nuanced. But reality is simple. Reality is binary. Hello, Huntress TV. Yeah, there are people here.
And then
Just you.
recede when it finds out no one's into it.
That's why any and every sumbitch we find wearing a Nazi uniform, they're gonna die.
It doesn't respond to love. It doesn't respond to hate. It doesn't respond.
This is actually incorrect because, again, we just need to remember the story of people like Daryl Davis, the black man who actually made friends with KKK members and, like, actually pulled them away from the KKK. They don't want to. These people don't want to do that because, first of all, they don't see that. They don't see the people that are their enemies as human beings, of sharing the same nature as them. Otherwise, they would actually, again, uh, what the fuck? They would, because if they saw them as like fellow human beings with the same intrinsic dignity, they would actually put in some effort to actually reach these people. You know, because they share the same nature. They are brothers, and sisters, just like Daryl Davis did. But they won't deign to do this because this would require some degree of reflection. Uh, on their part to see how exactly do I reach these people when, in fact, they can just get the glory that they want from violent revolution. Uh, yeah. So you can actually reach people with very bad beliefs by being loving and being patient and actually talking with them. But they don't want to do that because if they acknowledge that the people they hate are actually people just like them, it exposes them to being very evil people, to be perfectly honest.
To ignoring it. It doesn't.
You kind of lose the plot when you call everyone you disagree with a Nazi. Like, yeah, I fuck hate commies, but not everyone I disagree with is a commie. Not everyone on the left is a commie. You can't just use that as a blanket statement and say, yeah, you're a Nazi and you deserve to die. And then complain when we say, no, we're going to defend ourselves, we're not going to die. And then it's like, aha, so you are a Nazi. It's like, no, I'm not a Nazi, but you're insane, so it doesn't matter what I say.
Respond to timeouts. It doesn't.
They're not insane, they're evil. There is a difference. Like, this is the problem that people have. Insanity reduces moral culpability because ought implies can. If you ought to make a right decision, it means you can make that decision. If you cannot make that decision, there is no ought about it. And your ethics is fundamentally tied to your reason. Your ability to reason about ethics is, again, rooted, I mean, it's pretty fucking obvious, in your ability to reason. So, yes, mental handicap is actually something that does reduce moral culpability. It doesn't necessarily reduce safety issues, which is why asylums were a thing, because you needed a place to put the people who were violently insane. They weren't necessarily evil, but you still needed to protect everyone else, from them. But no, these people, they have adopted evil ideas, and sometimes it's just because they were duped into these evil ideas, right? And those people can actually be reached. But the people, the true believers, the people like Vosh, no, these people are like they weren't duped. They genuinely believe this, and it's because fundamentally these are actually genuinely evil people. They're not crazy. They're evil.
Mod, can I have that fucking really cool Trump propaganda video?
You cut it out. You bombard it with poison, or you die. And in any case, you will probably die. Don't die talking to cancer. Don't die hanging out with it. Don't die arguing with it on Twitter. It's fucking fascism. Enough. Team up.
He does have a point there, right? Like, these people are going to continuously lie, so you can't really have elongated conversations with them on Twitter. Correct the record, show other people just how disingenuous and fucked up these people are, and that's exactly how you spread the truth.
I don't care what flavor you want your democracy to be. It's democracy versus motherfucking fascism!
I hate to tell him this, but the Nazis were kind of democratically elected. Just pointing that out. That being said, democracy is a false god. Democracy doesn't determine right or wrong. Democracy can enable democracy functionally rarely enables virtue, because when you give everyone a vote, that the vast majority of people aren't necessarily the most virtuous. But yeah, democracy is definitely a false god. uh, the United States is in English we have this odd distinction between like democracy and republicanism. Uh, because the same word basically entered the English language from two different vectors. They refer to the same original source document. Like the Republic comes from the res publica, which is the Roman name of the Greek text Demokratia. It's the same book written by Plato. But yeah, democracy tends to, if you're talking like absolute democracy, that's just mob rule. There's no real moral foundation to democracy in this case. It is just the rule of the mob. Whatever the mob wants, it gets, and that usually is a very evil situation to be in. Republicanism actually has the ability to balance the needs of the many, or the desire of the many, with some kind of other constraints, which are kind of necessary in order if you want any kind of democratic process to actually work. Because it turns out, again, the mob is not the most moral or loving thing in the world. So
This guy is crazy. What happened to Dan Harmon, bro?
he's not crazy. Again, he's evil. There is a difference.
What happened to Dan Harmon? That's crazy. This is my favorite propaganda video. This is my absolute favorite. I've played it so many times. This was 2 years ago. January 4th, 2024. I can't believe it's been 2 years. 11 films. So this is supposed to be anti-Trump, right? This is an anti-Trump, this should scare you propaganda. Video aims to illustrate a potential future for America under the hypothetical scenario of Donald Trump's re-election in 2024. It draws upon his public statements, media reports, party policies, and various other sources to construct a speculative vision of what might unfold during his tenure. AI audio was used to demonstrate Donald Trump declaring martial law.
AI bad unless we're doing it against Donald Trump, in which case AI good. Yeah, fair enough. I guess, right?
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, no, no, other than day one."
I don't think he did enough on day one to be called that.
I hereby declare martial law.
Citizens of the new America. Here are today's announcements.
It's really funny that they use that as an example when we unironically have towns in America with, like, the Islamic call to prayer in the morning.
Supreme Leader Donald Trump proclaims the 4th of July will no longer be celebrated as Independence Day. In honor of our 2021 Patriots, January 6th will now be recognized as our great nation's birthday.
And once again, this is how you know that they do not understand anything about conservatives. No conservative would want that. No normal person would want Independence fucking Day moved to January 6th.
All citizens are required to participate in quadrant festivities. Failure to do so will be met with harsh punishment and immediate incarceration in your local detention camp.
I'm tired of the separation of church and state junk.
I actually thought that they were doing I didn't think they were doing Hunger Games. That might be what they're doing, because I'm going to be honest, I read the first Hunger Games book and I had to watch the movie for like a class I had to do. I didn't particularly care for either one, but I was actually getting more the Purge vibes, to be perfectly honest.
Effective immediately, all children are now considered spiritual soldiers of MAGA, regardless.
Which is really funny when you think about how they call children little allies and how you have to teach them to protest as well.
That's fucking, you know what? That's a good point. I actually didn't catch that. Good. That's a really good catch, Kirsha.
Rape, incest, or health of the woman, abortion is now illegal.
Wow, that didn't happen.
Providing or receiving it.
Right. It is kind of interesting to see how much of this shit did not actually happen. Again, the left has an inability, on average, not everyone, but there's a large contingent of the left that has an inability to model the minds of their opponents. Because again, they're not living in reality. they are living in a hyper reality that they themselves constructed and which they treat as reality.
Abortion will be charged with murder.
I mean, I actually think that that'd be entirely just. I think it would actually make a lot of sense that if you kill a human being that is innocent, you should be charged with murder. That's just my personal opinion, and that's been an opinion of mine for for a long time. Like, yeah, like I find it really difficult to argue against that.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? There has to be some form of punishment. For the woman? Yeah, there has to be some form.
Yeah, it's murder. You kill a baby, you should be punished.
Due to previous liberal indoctrination, all schools are hereby closed. All citizens must participate in their quadrant's book of...
Pastor holds bonfire to burn witchcraft books, NBC News. What books were they burning? I am the Russian goose. What books were they burning?
Eliminations.
What books were they burning? Yeah, that's a good question. It is a good question, because it's always interesting that they never actually tell you what books are actually being burned. Interesting. Are they grimoires by any chance?
Celebration festivities. Failure to do so will be met with harsh punishment and immediate incarceration in your local detention camp. All migrants, refugees, and dreamers are now considered enemies of the new America and will be rounded up, incarcerated, and deported immediately.
Again, wow, that didn't happen. Fucking interesting. It's almost as if they're being dishonest little cunts.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. We will root out the radical left thugs that live like vermin. Vermin.
Your curfew and freedom to travel will be determined by your quadrant's Vermin Surveillance System score. The Vermin Surveillance System has proven to be invaluable in detecting and squashing liberal uprising. All citizens must continue to report any progressive or liberal activity. Failure to do so will be met with harsh punishment and immediate incarceration at your local detention camp. Your unwavering loyalty to Supreme Leader Donald Trump is mandatory and essential in keeping the new America great forever.
They couldn't come up with anything other than a supreme leader. You know, like the fucking North Korean dictator. Which, again, Juche stems from the Marxian schools. Like, it is a post-Marxian philosophy. It comes from Marxism. Or, you know, the supreme leader of, like, Iran. That's the best they could come up with. Is that Donald Trump would emulate the supreme, like, Iran and North Korea? Interesting. There is a distinct lack of creativity on the left with these particular things.
This is so fucking dumb. Yeah, it's pretty fucking hilarious. This video was funded by the resistance.
Considering how off this all turned out to be, I would have a very hard time trusting or taking anyone actually involved in the production of this seriously. I'd probably like. Honestly, if I had to interact with any of these people, I'd probably make fun of them. Like, what the fuck? You could not be more wrong.
And yet we still have riots on the street. So what are we doing here?
So much for that curfew or that vermin surveillance system, right?
We doing here? It's so stupid. It's gold. What are you doing? How do you make this?
It's that Godwin's law, the parody of what is it? Godwin? No, it's Poe's law. Wait, is it Godwin or Poe's law? It's one of the two. The whole principle of like the parody of extremism is indistinguishable from extremism, from earnest extremism. It's like, yeah, honestly, if you had given me this and you told me it was a parody, I would genuinely believe you because of how fucking ridiculous it is.
And think it's serious. And this works on people. People actually believe this.
Tell me why.
Yeah, just look at
all
Iran,
of us are
basically.
Fascists. Why all of us are grifters, and even do it specifically for me. I don't know. Like, I guarantee.
I'm gonna take one detour. Oh wait, actually,
there's
never mind.
no way this is going well. 54 likes, 96 dislikes. It literally, this cannot be worth it. This literally cannot be worth it whatsoever. But, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to share this video with you guys because it's truly insane. But that's gonna do it for today's.
How long is Rev's other video? How long is the other one? I want to see what he fucking said about this. I can't think of any.
I definitely should have started streaming earlier because I am definitely going overtime. Holy
Anything that would
shit.
top this in my career for like crazy posts.
Hey, what's up, guys? Riff here. Now, before we
Howdy,
get into
Rev.
the topics for today's video, I just want to make sure everyone watching has at least a 150 or higher IQ before we get into this content, because you really have to have the intellectual capacity to understand such an enriched platform like Reddit. And that's what we're talking about today. There is an absolutely insane, a golden nugget of content, a thread calling
really
out
was.
multiple content creators.
Oh God, what is
I
this?
was like, mods, should I even post this on Twitter? Like, this is fucking crazy. After it was sent to me, I was just like, is this okay? Like, am I like outing? Like, it's public on Reddit, so it should be fine. But like it was weird.
Potential divorce. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, your
Oh my God, are we talking about this shit again?
favorite streamers might be causing some of the worst people to get a divorce thanks to the related viewership. So who are the content creators we're talking about today? Well, one of them is Kirsha, the VTuber.
Oh God damn it. Okay, is this literally just the okay, yeah, this is the thing. This is not what I was intending to comment on today. So, yeah, okay. So, long story short, Kirsha has the common sense to say, look, don't spend yourself into a divorce and don't abuse your spouse just because of, you're a fan of a VTuber, could be fucking common sense. So, I'm not gonna sit through this part, partly because again it's getting really late and I have to be somewhere in the morning. But I do have one more thing. Uh, no, that's fine. Where did I put it? There was one more thing that I had. Oh, yep, here it is. Nope, that's not it. Hold on. I could have. Oh, here it is. Okay, I may be slightly retarded. Okay, so I bring this video up because again, people want to say that Kirsha is an evil person because she's a quote unquote right winger, even though she's just a '90s Democrat. To be perfectly honest, she's not right wing in any meaningful way. Well, I think even Nux would be like, yeah, she's not really right wing. People have said I'm fairly right, that I'm an extreme right wingist winger because I share a lot in common with anarcho capitalists, to be perfectly honest, and paleo libertarians. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, if that's right wing, that's right wing. I guess I'm an extreme right wing person, but you know, I still defend people that I disagree with. And Kirsha, the evil woman, still defends people she disagrees with. Here's an example. And this is completely unthinkable to the fucking thing that we just saw. These people will literally believe the worst about you and then not be able to explain why it is you do the things you do because it turns out their description of you is completely divorced from reality. So let's take a little bit from this.
Because the user deleted their account and moved to Blue Sky. And this is Kokui back in 2023 saying, warning about RJ2.
So this is Kirsha defending like one of my my Oshi, by the way, who is a leftist streamer, to be perfectly honest. But I enjoy the content because it's usually just cozy streaming stuff. And Kirsha still allegedly far right wing content creator defends her.
To the LA2. I'm not big on putting people on blast on Twitter, but this man made me feel unsafe, and I don't want him doing creepy things to other VTubers. So here we are. He not only bragged about getting a job at Offkai as staff so he could meet VTubers, but he also went out of his way to talk to people to figure out who they were by trying to identify their voices.
This is fucking mind-boggling to me, by the way. I don't want to know the name of any of the VTubers I listen to or watch, to be perfectly honest, because I'm watching a VTuber. The kayfabe is part of the draw, right? Like I'm here to watch cartoon characters, to be perfectly honest, not flesh tubers. If I wanted to watch flesh tubers, I'd watch a flesh tuber. There's nothing wrong with flesh tubers. It's just if I was interested in that, that's what I'd be watching. But I don't. So it's like I don't want to know your name. I don't want to see your face. If you want to show your face and tell your name, that's fine, but I'm not going to be looking for it. So it boggles the mind to me, like, why this would be the case. Now, I know why this is the case. I am very well aware of what kind of freaks are in the VTuber, community. Uh, not everyone is well behaved. And in fact, actually, I was apparently, and I got hit by controversy in one of the communities I'm in because I'm apparently a ice lover, quote unquote. Um, Someone in the community actually stuck up for me. You know, even though it's very obvious that I'm not, I don't support the same politics as the person who ended up stepping up to defend me. So yes, it is entirely possible to meet people of different opinions that actually are willing to stand up for you, and vice versa. You know, you should be able to stand up for other people. But anyway, continuing.
Completely unprofessional behavior for someone representing the convention. I didn't realize this, but when he approached me and my friends, he asked us what he should do if he recognized a VTuber and if he should approach and talk to them. And I said, you should only approach them if they said it was okay beforehand, otherwise let them be. And he turned his head and said, hey, Kokui, completely disregarding his own question. Then my first stream back, he says this in my chat twice, once with my TTS bot to make sure I heard it. I just wanted to get the word out about him since I've seen him in other streams aside from my own, and I feel sick to my stomach thinking he might be weird at someone else too. Stay safe, everyone. And these are the chats from her stream down here from the RJ guy. He said, at Kokui, how did I meet you in person and still barely know what you look like? Anyway, you're lucky you were surrounded by friends, or I might have attempted to make one of those mangas you enjoy become reality. What a fucking freak. Holy shit. Fuck you, chat. I touched Kokui's hand. Be jealous. How did I meet you in person and still not know what you look like? Someone was incognito. Anyway, lucky you were surrounded by friends, or maybe I would have attempted to make one of those mangas you read become a reality, and then a crying emoji afterwards. What is this insane fanfic? Yeah, like an actual fucking lunatic. And considering we know that there have been people, both on the Offkai staff and on the volunteer list, that have it out for certain VTubers, that have vendettas against certain VTubers, that want to make sure certain VTubers do not have a great time there. Again, becoming a volunteer, if the staff hates your VTuber, and by fucking association you, because you like that VTuber, you're not gonna have that great of a time. And it's like, it makes me sad because I want all communities to be able to go to a convention. A VTuber convention should be completely sans politics. There should be no picking and choosing what politics belong there. It should be completely sanitized of anything political. There should be no political panels. There should be no political booths. It should all be VTuber centric. And it's like, even when I was going to go, I was going to be doing an 18 plus voice acting panel with someone else. I wasn't going to be doing anything political. I wasn't going to be bringing politics there because they don't belong. And instead of having me go and seeing what the result would be, they decided to blacklist me from appearing on panels as an official guest and telling me, well, people just don't feel safe if you're here, and as a small convention, we can't have that right now. Maybe in the future when we grow larger, we can have some more controversial VTubers like yourself. And it's like, I don't fucking believe you. If you're willing to blacklist me at this point, first of all, I'm not going to come to your convention. I'm not going to buy a badge and give people who hate me money. That's absurd. And second of all, I don't believe that in the future you'll suddenly be like, okay, we know we said you couldn't come before, but now it's okay. Like, I just don't fucking believe you. Your people are known for being backstabbing, lying cunts. There's no fucking way. And then we had multiple Offkai volunteers get removed this year because they couldn't help themselves and they posted shit on Twitter that they shouldn't have. We had that one tech guy who lost his position because he was posting shit. We had that one former staff member that I found that basically outed Offkai as like, yeah, they did try to sabotage certain people, you know? So it's like, I don't know how or why people still support Offkai as a convention. It's not going to change. It's going to be shit every year. And it's like, I definitely feel bad for people who want to have like a fun con experience with their friends. But if the organizers hate you, if they hate your Oshi, what are you paying for? What are you doing? I want to have a VTuber convention that is welcoming and open to everyone, unless you've done something illegal. Right? Like, if you've, like, fucking sexually assaulted someone or you've murdered someone, like, yeah, you can get the fuck out, right? But, like, I'm gonna need to see the police report. Do not give your money or government ID to people who hate you. Yeah. And so, the fact that their con is so heavily mismanaged, they have so many mentally ill people running the show, performing their vendettas in real time against VTubers and VTubers communities that they dislike because of perceived political differences, I would not trust these people with ID. I would not trust them to have this information be secure. I do not feel like this is a safety thing on their end. I feel like this is a safety thing on everyone else's end. Knowing how vocal they are about their hate of some VTubers and their fans, how could anyone trust them with their personal information? I have no idea. It feels like some people try to heavily convince themselves that, like, oh, it's fine if they hate my Oshi because as long as she gets to keep going, I'll keep giving them money. But it's like, you like your Oshi, therefore they also hate you. Are your fucking gay hotel orgies really worth it, dude?
That may seem like a wild thing to end on, but yeah, fair. Yes, that was a thing that was also on some of these conventions. Fucking wild shit. But yeah, if Kirsha's a Nazi and she actually hates people, or the people who disagree with her, why would she defend someone so diametrically opposed to her politically? Kirsha supports ICE. Koki does not support Koki, not Koki. Koki. Damn it, she's got me saying it now. Koki does not support ICE. Kirsha is fine with AI. Koki is very strongly against AI. In fact, she's so strongly against AI, she left X to go to Blue Sky. You know, and again, leftist content creator, which again signals why she doesn't use X at all. She uses Blue Sky as her main thing. So if it turns out that Kirsha is apparently a Nazi, why is she supporting a Puerto Rican frog? Right? Because Koki is also Puerto Rican. Kirsha's white. It's like, last time I checked, most people don't consider Puerto Ricans, most people don't consider Puerto Ricans, white. I mean, you can technically be Puerto Rican and white, but that's not the general assumption. And last I checked, doesn't the left seem to think that, like, all Hispanics and all Latinos are somehow, like, the target of the right, given the conflation of Hispanics and immigrants, which is a bizarre thing that I have observed over time. So I was like, why would this white supremacist then go out and defend a Latina VTuber if she's also one who doesn't support ICE? Unless it turns out she's actually not a Nazi, and she doesn't treat people differently because of their politics. She actually does think it's okay. She actually does think it's the right thing to do to defend people who disagree with her, if it's the right thing to do. All you have to do to show that these people are lying, disingenuous cunts is actually show that, yes, the things they say about people are actually untrue. Kirsha's not a Nazi. She will actually go to bat for people that are on the opposite side of the political, spectrum, if she thinks that they're actually, like, being wronged in that particular situation. And so, yeah, that's where I wanted to, like, I guess, end off on that. Again, they don't call you a Nazi because they actually think you're a Nazi. They don't call you a fascist because they actually think you're a fascist. They call you these things so that they can justify the things that they want to do to you. And they accuse you of doing the same because they're projecting on you. So, oh my god, it is significantly later than I expected it to be. I need to go to sleep. Y'all have a good day. This is going to possibly be my longest video so far. I think it's going to be a while before I react to another Kirsha stream.